This time I'd like to call to order the Monday, September 15th meeting of the Currituck County Board of Commissioners. At 5:30 we had a work session to discuss soil engineering and drainage certifications. At 6 we had a work session to discuss the Corolla multi-path. I'd also like to recognize that Commissioner Martin and Commissioner Beaumont could not be here tonight due to personal reasons. And at this time, I'd like to call on Reverend Emma Jones from Living Word Outreach Ministry to lead us in our invocation and pledge of allegiance. Please stand.
Let us pray. Father, in the name of Jesus, we come now as humble as we know how. God, we call on your holy and righteous name. God, we invite you into this meeting. God, we ask you to take control of our minds, and God, we ask you to take control of our hearts right now. God, we ask you to hover over us even now, God. And God, the decision that we make on tonight, God, that it be pleasing in your sight. And God, we be careful to give you all praise. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Let's pledge the leader. I pledge allegiance to the flag from the United States of America, and with Republicans, which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Ms. Jones. This time, I'd like to have an approval of the agenda. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
I have a motion. Do we have a second? Second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We have public comments. We have 13 people signed up for public comments. We have many people signed up to discuss the Corolla NC-12 bike path and pedestrian walkway. Does everyone want to speak, or do y'all want to appoint someone to be a spokesperson, or we'll just start out, and if somebody says something that you wanted to say, you can say ditto, and we'll be okay with that. Mr. McCree is going to operate the timer. Each person has 3 minutes, and we'll start with Alicia McDonald. I ask that when you come forward, please restate your name and address for the record.
Good evening. My name is Alicia McDonald. I live at 965 Sunset Crescent in Corolla. I just want to give you a little history about, before I begin. I first bought my first piece of property in Corolla in 1971. I built a house in 1988. And over the past 27 years, I have seen NC-12 go from in areas where it wasn't. It's been moved in Pine Island. It's been moved by BD&A for Monterey Shores. And over the past 27 years, this road has gone from just a highway to a recreational area. People use it because they can't go through long distances in their subdivisions. I know the bike path will help. I want to make a suggestion for the tourist board. The tourist board has infomercials on TV that tell us how to keep the beach clean and be a beach star, how to drive safely on NC-12 on the four-wheel drive, how to shop, where to dine, where the visitor center is. I think the tourist board needs an infomercial. How to be safe on NC-12. It needs to tell our tourists where the bike paths are, and mostly it needs to tell them ride with traffic and walk facing traffic. These people that are out there, you can tell they're brand new. They haven't been on a bike in 50 years. They've got brand new white sneakers on. They don't wear a helmet. But I'll tell you, it's the bikers. And 90% of the time, the bikers are on the right side of the road. It's the pedestrians. And unlike Duck, where there's a double white line differentiating the Ocean Drive or Ocean Boulevard or Duck Road, whatever you want to call it, in Corolla, we only have a single white line that needs to desperately be repainted, and if not, painted with a double white line. But I really would like to see an infomercial saying, please be safe on NC-12. Use a bike path where there is a bike path. Use a walkway where there's a walkway. And please, over and over again, walk facing traffic, ride with traffic. Thank you.
Ms. McDonald, I think that's an excellent suggestion, and I think the county manager will take that forward to the tourism board. Next, we have John Brennan.
Good evening. I'm John Brennan, 639 Sandling Trail, Corolla, North Carolina. I want to talk about an initiative that Corolla Fire and Rescue started. It's called CFR Cares. I am the vice president of the board of Corolla Fire and Rescue. I'm a line officer, and I'm one of the newest members of the Currituck County Fire and EMS Advisory Board. Specifically, the accidents where 3 people have been tragically killed in the last 14 months. There's many factors why these people were killed, but there are 2 common factors, and one is the lack of ability to get off the road when you're walking or biking. These were all pedestrians, 2 in the daylight, 1 at night. So I applaud the efforts that the council is taking to fast-track the bike path, because moving the people away from Highway 12 to the extent possible would probably have prevented these deaths. Also, with CFR Cares, we've already started an initiative with the major employers of international students, specifically Food Lion and Harris Teeter, about offering our expertise with and being part of their orientation program to warn the people of what the dangers are, and it's different than probably the countries they're coming from, where maybe there's more bicycle and pedestrian friendly. We're also advising them, and we're helping them to obtain reflective type clothing at night. And the last thing we're doing is requesting that they use their corporate entities to help with this fast tracking the bike path and the pedestrian traffic way to entire completion. And the vote you took just before most of the people came in, I applaud it. I congratulate you for it, and I hope we can continue to move rapidly forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Brennan.
Yes.
I've been told that Harris Teeter has one of the most proactive programs ongoing right now for just that, with the people that come in, the workers that they have come in, to educate them, and that traffic safety and walking safety and all that stuff is a part of it. Have you looked at that yet?
We are in the process of, we've actually contacted their corporate headquarters and asked to be a part of this. And we have not, to my knowledge, received an answer yet, but I will pursue what you mentioned.
And from what I understand, they even have a program at night that they will offer to get a ride home for someone who has to walk or something.
I believe they do that, and especially with many of their women employees. I don't know how much the people are young, they're indispensable or indestructible, and I don't know how they are doing it. The individual who was tragically killed crossed the road from the parking lot. He was within 50 feet from turning into the subdivision in Ocean Sands where he lived when he was hit from behind. Okay. But yes, I do believe they're proactive. They certainly, for those people that don't know, did an excellent job of supporting the family. It took all costs to ship the body back to Bulgaria, and have stood up and counseled their employees, so on and so forth.
Thank you, sir. Good luck.
Yep.
Next is Barbara Marzetti.
Barbara Marzetti, 609 Sea Oats Court in Corolla. I'm president of the Corolla Civic Association, so you all have seen my missives and heard me talk before many times, excuse me, about the bike path. You know, we are 1,000% behind it. It's our top priority for Corolla. We believe it should be the top priority for the county. We also think you should fast track it and get it all done in the next 3 years. I won't go into the detail. You've heard me say all of this before. I would like to support what John Brennan just said about CFR Cares. We have spoken with CFR. We'll be working with them in any way they need us to do. And we'll certainly look forward to working with at the NCDOT folks again. If you get that meeting set up, we'll be happy to sit down. Anything you need us to do, you know we're willing to listen, we're willing to talk. And I thank you for your support.
Thank you. Next is Deborah Caporal. I'm sure I've slaughtered it. Please correct me.
Either or works.
Okay.
It's actually Deborah Caporal, and I'm at 523 Ocean Trail. We live right on Route 12, and I really just want to emphasize that we're 100% behind the path. We also need to be 100% behind making the speed limit consistent on Route 12. From 25, 35 to 45, in the middle of the season, part of it changed to 35, and we didn't even know it. I just think if we got consistency, it'd make it easier for visitors and people who live there to know what is expected. That's it.
Thank you. Nancy
Bostaff, I concur with everything.
Bostaff, okay. Very well said. Very well said. Next is Roger Crafe.
Same thing.
Very well said. Next is John Corporal. Caporal.
John Caporal, 523 Ocean Trail. And I won't take 3 minutes because I'll ditto most of what's said. But just as a personal observation, I see all kinds of crazy stuff out there just in front of my house. A professional biker that lost control of his bike and had nowhere to go, and somebody had to slam on the brakes, and the Corolla Rescue came out and investigated that. People with little kids on the back, it's just crazy. They forget where they're at. You know, they're on vacation, and they kind of hang up their common sense hat. So just asking you to please fast track this, whatever the staff can do with permitting to move this through. We just hate to hear that there's going to be lots of delays. Just ask you to get this done as quickly as possible, and thank you for your vote.
Thank you. Next is E.T. White.
Good evening to you all. I'm E.T. White. I live at 1041 Ballahack up in Chesapeake, but I am a landowner in Currituck. And I would like to appeal to you folks to take another look at a UDO change that you've made that affects property owners such as myself, farmers mainly, that own land that's not served by the county water system. Right now, the change that's been made to the UDO that goes into effect the 1st of March next year will make it so that any kind of subdivision, except for a few exclusions, like a family subdivision or Gibbs Woods, etc., and you know the one I'm talking about, but I'm just bringing it to light, please, that you'll have to have county water to do a subdivision. Now, in effect, that's devalued my land. I am an example of the effect of this. Last year at this time, I had a contract on 24 acres at $10,000 an acre for small subdivision. And folks, I mean, made in America, that's one of the few things left now. That there's a lot of jobs from development. A lot of people want to sling mud at development, but if it's done right, it creates jobs, it creates areas for people to come and activities and homes and churches, etc. And I think that your UDO is a well-written document. It is very reasonable to me for roughly a set-aside area about the same size as the lots that you're taking for your higher density and so forth. But the water bond has always been an issue for us folk like myself that are out in the country, where right now, at least for the near future, there is no plan, as I understand it, to extend water there. And yet the bond is still collected, and it's miles away, so it becomes a big-ticket item on a land sale. And guess who the developer or the builder comes to for a reduction in price? The landowner, because of this. So we tried to get that looked at and rescinded, and it didn't happen. In fact, the opposite has happened now, where you can't even have a division if you don't have county water available. So I appeal to you to please take another look at that if possible. I also appeal to you that if a development goes in and there is a water system that's put in for that development, doing what the county water should do, but isn't able, then why still charge the bond? As I understand right now from conversation with Ben this morning, the bond would still be collected for the extension of water main, but not the infrastructure. Is that right? Correct. That's not fair. It's just not fair, in my opinion. If somebody is going to build a subdivision and incur the cost of providing water and yet still pay a bond for a water line that is nowhere near in the future coming, you have water in some bond money, some cases for 10 years that nothing's been done with. So please reconsider it. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Scanlon, did the board ask that that be looked at again?
Yes, sir, you did, and it's tracking back through the process. And
so it'll go to the planning board and then come back to us?
Yes, sir, it will be.
Okay, so it's going to be reconsidered.
Thank
you. Next, Mr. Earl Weimer.
I'm Earl Weimer. I live at 1125 Persimmon in the village of Corolla. I would just like to encourage the commissioners to fast track this bike path. I mean, even in putting it ahead of something like a boat dockage on the Corolla, on the mainland. It just seems to me that this is way more important than the county spending county funds on a boat dockage when the bike path is a health and safety issue. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Scanlon, it's not a money issue. It's a permitting and design is where we are.
That's correct.
And then as soon as that's done, we'll be moving forward.
That's correct.
Okay. So we are as quick as we can get the permitting done. It's in the till to be done. Next, we have Rick Chance.
Good evening. My name is Rick Chance, and I'm a member of the Outer Banks Bicycle and Pedestrian Safety Coalition. We were formed last year because of some fatalities we had in Dare County. First off, I want to applaud the board for approving your bike ped plan, and I think that's great work that needs to happen in Corolla. Over the past 4 years, Corolla has seen 86% increase in vehicular traffic, and I urge this board to work with urgency to get this plan in place because we really can't wait another 4 years for it to be completed and more tragedies happen. I also urge you to please look more in education. I heard a couple of folks tonight speaking about educating the public about safety issues. Please take that very serious. I'd really like to see a lot more of that happen. Some alarming DOT statistics are that even though we have over 250,000 visitors come to the Outer Banks, and our local population is only 15% of that, our local population is responsible for 50% of all the accidents that happen in the Outer Banks. That's an alarming fact. We really need to look at more enforcement and education. I strongly encourage that. I look at things with y'all's Visitors Bureau and things you have on your websites. It's lacking very much on pedestrian safety. Some great things with bicycle, but we really need to work on the education piece. We talk a lot about the exchange students. They are a very high-risk group. Even though they represent only 3% of their population, they are involved in over 30% of the accidents. And targeting them to help them, educate them, and teach them the woes of what it is in here, the Outer Banks, with our infrastructure and the things that we have to work on. I please urge you, I appreciate everything, your hard work. I please urge you to please work with this with urgency to really make it happen. I firsthand experienced what it's like to lose an associate to a bicycle pedestrian accident and what it was like to call his mother and tell him he wasn't coming home. So I thank you again, Board.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I have a
yes,
quick...
Sir.
Sir, could I ask you a question, please?
Yes.
It's my understanding that the bicycles on the road have to obey the traffic laws. Is that right?
That's state law, yes, sir.
Okay. When you have a pedestrian in the crosswalk and cars stop to allow those people cross. Is it permissible for the bicycles to go blowing through that intersection?
Absolutely not. This is not just about talking about educating from the riding in the vehicles. It's also both ways. It's about educating our bicyclists, our pedestrians, our visitors, our locals, everybody. It's not just about who's driving in the car. You know, we want to make sure that the bicyclists are following the laws too and are safe.
Okay.
One of the things that we do is we make sure that we stop and educate them when we see them breaking the law.
Well, that was my question, because you know there's enough violations out there, bicycles and cars, but I didn't know that in the Corolla light you see just bicycles run on through.
There's a very large gap in education, and we really need to work on shore it up and really get people to understand what the laws are and safety. Crosswalks are extremely dangerous. DOT says 75% of all the accidents happen at the crosswalks. And I watch people blow through them all the time. In state law, you're supposed to stop and allow them cross.
Mr. Chance, I'll ask you one thing. If you've got resources and information, could you get that to, would Ben or the manager be the appropriate?
We actually attended for the first time. Staff attended the meeting that they had today, and we will continue to.
So y'all are in it?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. I really appreciate Currituck coming out today. It was a great meeting we had. Every third Monday at Town and Ag said we do have meetings. We encourage full participation. Anybody who wants to come out and really help us get the word out. Thank you again.
Next, we have Robin Chance.
Hi, I'm Robin Chance. I'm Rick Chance's wife, 208 West Sportsman Drive. I am with Harris Teeter. I've been there since we opened, since 2006. Definitely want to thank y'all. If we can expedite this plan that y'all have in place, that would be incredible. We need to educate everyone that comes in, definitely more on our website. The website is absolutely incredible. It has everything from pet safety to water safety, but not about pedestrian safety and how our guests should walk. So many people come in. If you're watching them traveling on Saturdays and Sundays, everyone has a bike rack, 5 bicycles loaded to every car, but there's nowhere for them to travel. So as soon as we can expedite that would be incredible. And it is definitely 30% of our European students that come in that get hurt every year. We need to do more to help them, more to train them, and we're doing as much as we can at our store, at our level. So if we can get that bike path put in, it would be so much more appreciated. And Harris Teeter thanks you. Thank y'all.
Thank you. Next is Mike Kondash, okay.
Hi, my name is Mike Kondash, and I live at 522 Sand Bucket Arch, Corolla. And I'm not going to take much of your time. What everybody's talking about is the safety, on the road. North Carolina puts these out for nothing, and you can pick them up and put them in a tourism and whatever. But this tells you the right, way to ride a bicycle or walk them. So these are for you guys. But my main issue is Mike Dutton from Dare County Commissioner. He had gotten these lights for all the students and for international students. And what they do is they wrap around your handlebars just like this, and you push the button, and they'll flash. Or you can put them on the back of the bike, whatever. They're on steady, and then they're off. And these would be great if we could implement this in the program. These are put out by Dare County, and it's written right on here, Dare County. So I'm going to leave these with you guys, so you can have them and maybe implement it in your program. And here's paperwork here where they can be bought, how much they are, and you can find out on the internet. And I think that's about all I got, really.
Mr. Kondash, could you just hand all that stuff to the county manager?
I sure would.
Thank you very much. That's all we have signed up for public comment. This time I'm going to close public comment and move to administrative reports. We have something that every once in a while we get to congratulate somebody for their years of service and recognize them. Tonight we have Miss Kitty Etheridge, who recently retired from the Board of Elections, and then we're going to swear in the lady with the baby. So I ask the board to come down front, please. Technical difficulties. Technical difficulties. Come right here if you would, Miss Kitty. Yes, 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 yes. Okay, on August 29th, Ms. Etheridge retired after 15 years as the director of the Board of Elections. Before that, she had 13 years as a member of the Board of Elections. Is that correct? Mm-hmm. She earned both state and national election certificates, and she's married and has 2 children and 3 grandchildren. And Miss Kitty's plans are to spend more time with family, particularly the grandchildren. Always heard they're better than children. She hopes to do more traveling and complete her goal of visiting all the state capitals. She would also like to visit each of the county seats. And there's a rumor that she might even think about some politics in the future. So at this time, I'd like to present, there's 2 of them in here. One of them's kind of cockeyed, I'm sorry. To a certificate of appreciation presented to Mary K. Etheridge, better known as Miss Kitty Etheridge, for dedicated service to Currituck County since July 1999 as Director of Elections and for 13 years as a member of the Board of Elections. On this occasion of your retirement, we extend our sincere appreciation and best wishes for even greater achievements and rewards in the future, presented this 15th day of September 2014. And one thing I'd like to say, while Miss Kitty was the elections director, when we went to bed at election night, you didn't have to worry if things were going to be okay. She and her staff have always done a wonderful, outstanding job of making sure the integrity of the elections in Currituck County have always been held to the highest standard. And we appreciate that and congratulate you and wish you many, many years of enjoyable retirement.
Thank you.
I'd like to thank the citizens of Currituck. It's been a privilege to serve the citizens. I've been so pleased with our office. I feel like that we're #1 in the state, but we certainly couldn't do it without our board members, and we have 2 of them here with us tonight, Alice Molesky and Karen Ish, who's the chairman. I've had wonderful support for all these years from the board. You can't do it without good precinct workers. They're the ones who are really the gatekeepers of democracy. They make sure everything runs smoothly. But you have to have a good staff, and even though I only had 1 staff member, she's great, and I'm really pleased that she's taken over as the new director. Thank you.
Thank you, and congratulations. And now, the lady with the baby. Rachel Raper, who has been the assistant Currituck County Deputy Director of Elections for 9 years. Doesn't seem that long, but
it has been.
She earned a master. She earned a Master's of Arts in Liberal Studies from UNC Greensboro in 2011. Rachel obtained her certification as a North Carolina Elections Administrator in 2009. Rachel is happily married to her husband, Robbie, and they're the new parents to the world's sweetest 5-month-old daughter, Liza. And if you'd like for her to be part of your swearing in, that's perfectly okay. And make it a big family affair. I believe you have family. You have family here tonight.
Yes. Grandmas.
Grandmothers. Yeah. And Mr. Matusko, our clerk, is going to do the swearing-in ceremony, and I think he has just realized he's a little too old for softball. So with that, Ray, we're going to...
Where else can you get sworn in by a guy on a scooter?
Sworn in by a one-legged guy.
If you'll raise your right hand, please. Do you, Rachel Boyce Raper, solemnly swear that you'll support the Constitution of the United States and that you'll be faithful and bear true allegiance to the state of North Carolina and to the constitutional powers and authorities which are may be established for the government thereof, and that you will endeavor to support, maintain, and defend the Constitution of said state, not inconsistent with the Constitution of the United States, and that you will well and truly execute the duties of the office as Director of the Currituck County Board of Elections to the best of your knowledge and ability, and according to law, so help you God.
I do.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I just wanted to thank everyone and also just say I was trained by the best director in the state, and I have the best precinct officials in the state, and I just look forward to continuing to serve the Currituck County voters and provide fair and impartial elections. So.
Congratulations. Thank you.
Just skate on that.
Steps, Russ. We'll let everybody have a chance that wants to leave. They can leave. All right, this time we'll move to our next agenda item. It's a presentation, Green Sea Blueway and Greenway Management Plan. So I'm going to turn that one over to the staff.
Holly White, our senior planner, is going to kind of kick us off on this tonight.
Good evening.
On who you are.
I'm Holly White, senior planner on our planning staff. And I'm pleased to be with you again tonight and to be introducing a newly developed partnership. This is a follow-up to the recently adopted MOYOC Small Area Plan. The county was approached by the City of Virginia Beach Office of Sustainability to enter in a regional planning effort and a partnership with the City of Virginia Beach and Chesapeake to address a sustainable management approach to our natural resource system, the water, the sound. So this ties in directly to our recently adopted MOYOC Small Area Plan and addresses and implements some of the actions that we listed in the plan, mainly our recreation actions. We addressed having paddle trails and a greenway system. Also preservation of historic scenic vistas, so that would be our heritage policies, and also it addresses tourism and economic development, and that would be to promote MOYOC as a destination for ecotourism. So without any further ado, I'm going to introduce Clay Burnick, Calvin Jackson, and Christina Brown, who we've been partnering with for the last several months to work with on this effort, and they're going to give you a full explanation of the regional planning effort.
Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, it's good to see you tonight. My name's Clay Burnick, and if you need my address, I guess I'll give you my work address, 2405 Courthouse Drive in Virginia Beach. And I'm joined tonight with my project manager, Mr. Calvin Jackson, and my assistant, who is really the one who keeps this project going, the unspoken hero in this, Christina Brown. Tonight we wanted to run through pretty quickly with you some of the overview of the plan and try to focus in on particularly items that relate to matters that you would be concerned about as elected officials, but also for the county. And we, in fact, just had a briefing this morning with the city manager and his senior staff in Chesapeake, the same kind of briefing we're providing to you tonight. The plan, what is it? What it really is, more than anything, is a plan to plan. And what we're proposing in this document, after a lot of consultation with stakeholders throughout all three communities, elected officials such as yourselves, staff from cities and counties, looking with other stakeholders in the community, state agencies, federal agencies, landowners, is a regional collaboration to protect and manage this area. For far too long, Virginia Beach has always had its focus up on Chesapeake Bay, and we realize that this area is very important to us, and we want to be in a full partnership, equal partnership with you all and with Chesapeake to really do a much better job, as your plan that you've adopted for Moyoc has already set in place, to really protect this area. Also, looking at environmental stewardship and enjoyment, we think there's a lot of potential that's really untapped between the three communities on marketing this area for the value it has. Looking at enhanced tourism and economic development that's supportive of the kind of goals that you have in your long-range plans, as we do. And then also to maybe move beyond the approach where we're really looking in the plan not to promote growing government to do this, but really encouraging the private sector and creating some kind of an ongoing partnership that could implement and manage and help coordinate between all three communities and all the different users out there. So how would the plan specifically impact Currituck? We think it could help increase awareness of the waterways, the rivers, Tulls Bay, that area. And I have some maps to kind of show the area we're talking about as I move on. It could help us indirectly help improve water quality, which we're all about, all three communities. Increase water access, increase recreational opportunity, promote health and wellness in our citizens and our visitors, increase some tourism opportunities, enhance property values, increase economic development that's compatible with our lifestyle and our culture and our resources, enhancing educational opportunities, everything from K-12 on up into college and even graduate work, and then looking at a nonprofit to help do this by pulling together the community together, and ensuring that long-term we're not talking about capital improvement or investment for local government, but instead utilizing the partnership to really go after and secure grants and other opportunities that are out there. So what are the planned boundaries? In Virginia Beach, the North Landing is our largest watershed, and that's shown on your map up there in the green. And then in Chesapeake, the Northwest is the largest in Chesapeake, kind of in the teal color. And then into Currituck more directly, where the mouth of the North Landing and the Northwest, of course, and I feel like I'm talking to the choir here because you all know this much better than us. We've learned a lot. Really, where Northwest River, Tulls Bay, and Currituck Sound all kind of come together there, that's really part of that most northeastern watershed in the state. So if we were to zero in a little bit further, what we've been able to find is that there's a lot of property that's already been acquired and protected, either as game lands or nature conservancy properties, lands that the Corps of Engineers manages along the intercoastal waterways, lands that are part of refuges over at Mackey Island or Back Bay. This whole area, there's a lot of protected land. But what is happening on a closer look is that a lot of that land is disjointed, it's disconnected, it's not really thought of as being part of a whole system. So we think part of the partnership approach might be able to help market that area as a shared resource and putting together some signage, some brochures, things that would help people to relate to the area as a whole. Bringing it down even closer, just looking at this area in Currituck, from the state line southward, A lot of land is already in protection. A lot of land is what I would call not suitable for traditional development, but it does have a huge amount of potential for ecotourism, for continued hunting and fishing, for really capitalizing on the resources and the values that really help give the character of this whole area. Where do we come up with this name? Back when they were surveying the boundary between the two colonies, even back before Ben and I got into local government, they started going through the area as survey teams, and they found an area of large vegetation with what was then, they didn't know what to call it, they called it green cane, really more of the native grasses, the marshes. And in some areas it was up to 15 feet high, and they said when the wind blew over it from a distance it looked like a green sea. And this was always present not just only in Currituck, but in southern Virginia Beach, back then Princess Anne County, of course, and in southern Chesapeake, back then Norfolk County. So we thought that was a good name that kind of brought the whole area together to go with the plan. As you all know from your work on the MOYOC plan, and you've done a lot of work talking about greenways, a blueway is basically the same kind of concept, except that we're trying to talk about how the waterway is the spine that helps hold the whole area together. And because of that, it has the potential to link some of these separate lands that are already protected in a way that maybe we don't need to think about traditionally like highways, but we can use the waterway as the connection. And of course, greenways themselves. Some parts of the country, a greenway is thought of more as a road corridor, but in this area we're talking about it really as its natural corridor. In putting together the concepts for the plan, we basically have come up with a series of 6 major core components that are coming out with the draft plan: administration, land protection, promotion, natural resource management, learning, and facilities development and management. And I just want to take a moment, to talk about a couple of those primary areas. Under administration, again, we're not proposing any kind of new government programs or staffing or resource commitments in any of the communities, but instead, maybe by our partnership between the 3 cities, or 3 communities, the 2 cities and the county, we can work at building a partnership with a nonprofit approach. And we've had a similar kind of success story up in our area with the Lynn Haven River Group. And it started out in that very same way. Land protection, again, there's a lot already out there, but there may be some unique spots or locations where we want to target, maybe between local governments working with this partnership on additional areas that would provide recreation access. Promotion and branding, we think, is the really big area of opportunity. We've had successful conversations with the convention staff, the tourism staff, the economic development staff in each community. And we think that by pulling together, maybe branding this area, come together with a logo and a design, this could really become a big selling point and could take off as some other areas to the southeast of us, way southeast of us, like Okefenokee in Georgia and Florida area, or areas like we've seen in the far south in Florida in the Everglades. We think it's that quality. It's a world-class resource. It always has been when you go back to the days of Mr. Knapp and all the fishing and the hunt clubs. And we think that collectively this area really has a lot more in common that could really gel together and make it a real strong resource and asset. Natural resource management, there's a lot going on already in the area. And unfortunately, each group has their own little expertise, and it tends to be kind of siloed. So you'll have Nature Conservancy over here with their strengths, and Game Department with their strengths, and then county or city folks with their strengths. But we need to work across those boundaries better. Learning, one of the things that's really exciting about this, besides the fact that the area is used as an outdoor classroom a lot now in local schools in the 3 systems, is the potential to really increase the research aspect. And we had a really successful meeting last week here with your folks from the UNC Coastal Studies Institute. And of course, all of those universities in North Carolina are working together on research in this area. And on our side of the line, folks from Old Dominion University, VIMS, UVA, Virginia Tech want to do the same kind of thing. So let's get them all working together. And then lastly, under facilities development and management, we know that there are a lot of things you all are already doing that we're doing too. And in terms of county budget, city budgets, making improvements for recreation or access. But by pooling our resources, we think it opens up a lot of opportunities for grant funding that we maybe haven't been able to tap, things like the Albemarle-Pamlico program, to the extent that we could collectively. Again, from a administration standpoint, we would envision, with the completion and endorsement of this plan by each of the communities, that we could encourage the stakeholders to get together, start forming a nonprofit, creating some kind of a committee structure with their expertise, and then move toward having an executive director and staff. So, in kind of closing really quickly, what are our next steps? Completing the draft plan. It should be up on our website, and we'll make sure to provide copies to all of you all, as well as senior staff, by early next week at the latest. We'll then have some outreach to make sure that we've captured everything, get all the errors out of the draft, and then work to revise that, have another round of output, and then look for some kind of adoption or endorsement by all three communities sometime late fall, maybe early winter, and then develop some kind of a 5-year strategy where we could all get together. Ben and I have already joked about the fact we think it would be great to get the leadership from each of the three communities out together, say down at the mouth of the Northwest River, North Landing River, right there, maybe off of Tulls Bay, on a boat, and have them sign it together and really show that we're committed to this for the long term. Our next steps, of course, we had some briefings today. We have a steering committee meeting, which I'm really happy to say that Ben and Holly have been really involved, and we really appreciate that, to go over the draft and start developing a strategy for that first 5-year effort. And then we look to having a final document by the middle of November before the holidays. And with that, I'll be glad to take any questions. And again, thank you so much for the opportunity to be here.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Good afternoon, or evening, I should say.
Yes, sir.
Just 2 or 3 questions that I maybe missed. As we talk about this plan, what initiatives and steps are going to be taken, or can be taken, or do you foresee being taken to enhance water quality and the sound? I missed, I never heard Back Bay watershed ever mentioned in any of this.
Right.
I know there's ongoing efforts, Back Bay Restoration Foundation and different other agencies that are certainly working on the mud hole of Back Bay and trying to help clean that up. And as you well know, everything from Back Bay comes this way, and through Currituck, Knott's Island Bay, Currituck Sound, finds its way onto Oregon Inlet. That's the only flushing mechanism there is. No pumping stations or anything any longer.
Right.
In Back Bay. So what are we looking at, and what do you foresee to help clean up the water quality? It's a major problem.
Absolutely. Well, I guess a compound answer, and I went back to this slide just to kind of orient and to point out some things. When we started working with this originally in Virginia Beach, we got started on the project because our comprehensive plan called for developing a Blueway strategy like this and a Greenway for only the North Landing River. Then, in talking to stakeholders, they said, well, you need to include the folks in Chesapeake and the folks in Currituck as well. So we started to grow this, and it very quickly became a very big animal. And we decided that, at least in the draft of the plan, that we'd start with the area that's shaded. And it could be expanded later to include Back Bay, absolutely, in Chesapeake on over to the Dismal Swamp, and in Currituck all the way down really to Powell's Point, to go across over to the Outer Banks. But we figured if we could get the mechanism in place and start making this work, then we can always grow out. But if we tried to take on too much at first, it might be difficult to sustain it. So that's the part of the answer. The other is, we're really committed in Virginia Beach. We have not only cleanup of Chesapeake Bay requirements there, but we're about 2/3 south, 1/3 north. And we're right now embarking on doing some strategies and changing our plans and ordinances in terms of trying to meet water quality standards for Back Bay and North Landing River systems. The TMDL requirements are there, and I'm sure you all have heard about that on your side of the line as well, in meeting all the new pollution control requirements. We're beefing up some requirements in our ordinances. We've established a buffer program in both North Landing and Back Bay that was not required under state code, and that's been adopted unanimously by the city. We're also looking at implementing a more stringent and cooperative program, working with our Soil and Water Conservation District and NRCS to do what we can on the rural lands down there. And then we have new stormwater requirements for the subdivisions in the northern part of Back Bay and North Landing watersheds. We're starting to see some improvements already, but we've got a ways to go. I think what I envision through this partnership is time for a new cooperative relationship between Virginia and North Carolina on this area. We're all in it together, and that's what I think I'm hearing real strong from our leadership they want to do.
Yeah, Back Bay is just, I mean, it's kind of near and dear to me, and I mean, that's been an ongoing problem there since in the 60s. There's been, I mean, I remember city council meetings where it was very contentious in Virginia Beach back in the 70s, and
right.
It's been ongoing, and most people who have been here most of their lives understand and know what happened to the water quality there.
Yes,
but
sir.
That's a story for another day. The other question I had for you, is the Army Corps Engineer playing any part in this? Are they a partner? I know that I have had meetings with Corps of Engineer officials right here in this courthouse that were dealing with water quality and marshland and preservation type thing and restoration.
Yes.
In our Currituck Sound watershed area. As a matter of fact, they even brought people, old timers that have been here for years that know the sound like the back of their hand to identify where islands used to be and that type of stuff for future data. But that seemed to have died on the vine, Dan. I mean, you're aware of what I'm talking about.
Yes, sir, I am. I think funding to finish the study became the issue.
Yeah, it was jointly funded by the state of North Carolina and the Army
feds.
Corps, and I don't think I think the funding
So in
was
other words,
cut.
that's a dead deal now.
But there was a lot of preliminary work that was done,
sure.
and there is some good data out there.
I mean, as late as 2 years ago, I met right here with a lady who come up specifically for that, and I brought 3 or 4 people over to, well, I invited people from here, Buddhist Rules, as a matter of fact, brought Mr. Lugart from Knights Island, and we sat here and spent a half a day talking about that stuff.
But there's good data available. It's already
There may
been
be a
done.
resource, I guess, is what I'm asking or what I'm suggesting.
Absolutely, and Mr. Adler, I'm glad you brought it up because we've had some similar experience with the Corps on our side of the line in some work on Lynn Haven and parts of the Chesapeake Bay. There's a lot of good research, a lot of good information, and we have been working with the Corps folks in Carolina on the Currituck Sound work they've done. But we had the same frustration. We got through the study, and then things tended to fall apart. And what we think is maybe this partnership approach might show folks on both sides of the line, the Norfolk District, the Corps, and the Wilmington District, that we are serious about this and we want to work together. And it might give us some more horsepower to get things moving in the direction that they need to go.
Maybe the Northwest River watershed is the place to start. I mean, the Back Bay watershed, it's kind of like saying my daddy used to have too late shut the barn door, the horse is already out. So
Right.
Well,
And maybe we can clean up that barn after we get northwest and have a good strategy that's working there.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Anyone else have any other questions?
The only other thing, if I could, Mr. Chairman, just one minor point I wanted to bring up is we draft the plan together. We'll make sure that we get ways for the public to get involved and to communicate. We don't mind come down at all. In fact, I kind of enjoy getting out of the city a little bit. I grew up in Virginia Beach when it was Princess Anne County, and I kind of like getting back to seeing places that I remember looking like what I grew up in. But also beyond that, we welcome any kind of ideas or input, or if people know of old maps or photos that we could include in the document, or other documents that they're aware of, or studies that we could reference. We'd like it to be kind of a one-size catch-all for all the best information we can have for everybody to go on moving forward.
I can tell you right now, with you saying that, the call just went out, and you'll be getting photographs, and if you'll come back again and do some public meetings, and Mr. Woody will put you in touch with some people that can give you some background and history and Moyock and from the courthouse and all over the county.
That's terrific. One final point I would make, and this really came out strong in our comments in talking to people that I thought was fascinating, is when we talk to folks from this area, especially folks who've been here for many years or their family for generations, they tend to think of this area first and foremost as being already an area to itself. It just happens to be in Currituck, or it happens to be in Virginia Beach, or it happens to be in Chesapeake. Instead, they thought of it kind of as being a place to itself, and they feel like they already have that connection, and here's a way for them to celebrate it.
Yep.
So,
All right.
thank you very much.
We thank you. Next item, public hearing and action, PB 1415 Saddlebrook Estates. Request for a preliminary special use permit for a 28-lot conservation subdivision located in Moyock on the south side of South Mills Road, directly across the street from Crown Point Estates, tax map 6, parcel 1N, Moyock Township. I have two people that have signed up to speak. If there's anyone else that plans to speak to this issue, either for or against, you need to come and be sworn in now. I think we've got one more coming. Left hand and raise your right hand. You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
Thank you. Mr. Woody.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a request for preliminary plat subdivision approval. Saddlebrook Estates is a proposed subdivision off of South Mills Road near the intersection of Northwest Backwoods Road. You can see on the aerial photograph, it is across the street from a couple of existing subdivisions in that area of the county. Property is currently zoned agricultural, and it's uniformly zoned that way. Most of this part of the county is zoned agricultural until you get into the Moyock, or in closer to the highway in the center of Moyock. Our land use plan designates this area as rural, and that's both the 2006 land use plan and the Moyock small area plan. So one thing to point out, this subdivision before you tonight is not the result of a rezoning. They're developing under the agricultural zoning district, so it's a little more low density than you typically see subdivisions in the residential zoning district. This particular tract is 56.73 acres, and they're proposing 28 lots. So that's a gross project density of about a half unit per acre, so about 0.49 units per acre. It does include open space, and essentially 61.35% of the property remains in open space. Now, a lot of that is going to be wetlands or kind of marsh area. And then the 28 residential lots that are being proposed in the conservation subdivision are clustered into what is now currently farmed in the agricultural area. One thing that's a little unique for the board to consider on this is these 28 lots are proposed to be serviced by a community well. So that's a community. What that means is they'll drill a well or a large well, and that'll service the water needs of the whole subdivision. So they'll have to put in a water distribution system. And there's also a 20-lot subdivision known as Backwoods Reserves across the street. That subdivision, which is not before you, but that too will be connected into this community water system. So what you have is a community water system that serves essentially 48 lots. Tonight you're seeing 28 of those lots. We'll have on-site septic systems as there's no sewer out there. The lots themselves have no direct connection to South Mills Road, which is important because South Mills Road on our comprehensive transportation plan is provided to be improved to 4 lanes at some point. So again, important not to have those extra driveway cuts or curb cuts on that road. So it's got a singular access to South Mills Road. And I also note they've put an open space strip between the right-of-way and the lots, so it gives a little separation there, which is important. It's got street interconnectivity to a vacant parcel to the east. There's similar subdivisions, as we saw in the aerial photograph, across the street. Some of those have larger lots, closer to 3 acres, and some have smaller lots, a little less than an acre. So in terms of lot size and compatibility, it appears to kind of fit in with what's surrounding. This is a use permit. In your case analysis, the staff has provided suggested findings. I'm not going to read through each of those, But if you have any questions on the use permit findings, I'll be happy to answer those. The Technical Review Committee has reviewed this preliminary plat application and does recommend approval with a couple of conditions, and I want to go over a few of those. One condition is that right now they've proposed a 6-inch water main be installed in the subdivision. Staff would like to put a condition that upon review, the county TRC may require a larger water main if it's deemed to be necessary. And the idea is that when the community water system is installed, at some point when the county water system is to this point, the community water system can then be connected to the county system. So you're actually putting in a portion of the infrastructure that would be needed in the future. So again, when the TRC reviews that, we'd like to have the authority to recommend larger water mains if necessary. And then finally, there is a 40-foot drainage easement along the southern property line, and that is a drainage easement that helps provide drainage outlet for Crown Point Estate, which is across the street. So the county would like to make sure that any plantings or any buffering that's done provides a free and clear 25-foot working area. And what that means is that at some point when this subdivision is done and it's buffered, there will still be free and clear access to the drainage ditch for maintenance reasons. So we want to keep that in place and not encumber that. And then finally, the planning board did recommend approval at this at their last meeting. One of their conditions they included was that the developer allow the other subdivisions, such as Crown Point, to access the drainage easement through the street system within the subdivision. So right now, I assume Crown Point accesses that outlet ditch from South Mills Road, but the planning board's condition would also give Crown Point Estates or another subdivision access to the ditch through the internal street network. So it just makes access a little easier for maintenance purposes. That concludes my presentation, and I can answer any questions you have.
Does anyone have questions? Mr. Woody? Yes, sir.
I know it's too late, but based on our work session and soil type, was this considered? Based on when we talked about earlier as far as...
Oh, yeah, this I don't have the map in front of me, but I feel almost certain that the soil type here would be subject to soil engineering or soil testing. Is that what you're referring to?
What we talked about in the work session?
Yes, yeah. Let me look and see on the TRC comment.
Now, would this come into play? I mean, because we're trying to implement the soil types now. Is this going to, is it?
It would be if there's any soil testing required. I mean, this still has quite a ways to go because if the preliminary plat's approved tonight, the next step would be to get construction drawings approved, then install the infrastructure, and then actually record the final plat. So this subdivision is probably many months away.
Okay, but we can require the soil testing like we talked about tonight. Is that right?
You could, and again, I think the policy that we discussed earlier would probably take care of that, provided it moves forward. I think our discussion tonight earlier is much further along or ahead of this subdivision.
I think the inspections department already
requiring
does
it,
soil testing. If there's questionable
If there's
soils,
questionable,
they're already doing the testing. This is what they're proposing is putting a policy in place instead of just going by what the general statute says.
I want the soil testing to apply. You're saying that it's already there.
Correct.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Woody, I would be remiss if I didn't ask, did we not already pass something about the water main size? If in the future, the water main that they're putting in is going to be used for domestic water that at some point in time may be county water, did we not just pass something that said a minimum main size of 8-inch unless it's looped?
We did. That's effective March 1st, so this is actually ahead of that.
Okay.
But certainly, one I think option would be for the board to require that as a condition of approval, and then there's no discussion about it at that point.
Okay. And the next question, you're talking about a community water system. I heard you say it was going to be wells. Is there going to be a number of deep wells and then some type of a treatment system that will then have a community water system?
There is. There's at least one deep well on this subdivision tract. I don't know if I know the extent to which it will be treated. Mr. Bissell will have to answer that. But yes, you're basically pulling the water from one well, then pumping it throughout the distribution system to serve the houses.
Okay, but they'll have a treatment system or whatever.
There'll be a level of water quality that has to be maintained, and that's monitored and permitted and regulated by the state of North Carolina.
Okay, and then after the development is built out, builders are gone, then the homeowners associations, I assume, is responsible for the water system at that time and for maintenance, upkeep, whatever?
They will be, and that'll have to be calculated in their reserve and their maintenance funds, the reserve fund. Additionally, before it goes to record, the county or the board will have to create a service district for this area as well.
Okay, we'll have to create a service district to cover the...
You don't have to. It's just, since there's a maintenance burden that exists with these property owners for their water, they are responsible for that. But as a backup, as another means to make sure that maintenance occurs, because you've got to have potable water supply, the board also establishes a service district over the properties. So in the event the homeowners fail to maintain their properties, you do have taxing authority as a board. And that's required for all water and sewer systems. There's always a service district created in Currituck County.
Eagle Creek we have.
Yes.
I understand, but here we go. We're the bad guy again, taxing people for something we didn't do.
Well, you have to assume, you have to hope that they'll, within the covenants themselves and the due structure, that's going to be managed and provided for.
Mr. Woody, how far is the nearest where the water line is? Because the water quality on South Mills is very questionable, and we've had
miles.
many complaints from that area.
It's several miles away.
It is several miles. So, okay.
Mr. Woody, did you just use the word assume?
I probably did. Maybe I shouldn't have.
Okay. But if I understand this right, at some point in time, another board is going to be responsible for creating a service district for something that we passed now. Is that right?
The creation of the service district is an ordinance requirement, so it's not really a matter left up to discretion of the board. If you approve a community water system for a subdivision, then part of the approval by ordinance is they have to create the service district. So it's not a discretionary decision. And I don't know if Dan and Ike, if you guys want to add anything on this.
So if bottom line is, if we pass this, there will be a service district created.
Before it's platted, they'll have to be, yes.
You will have to go through a separate process, of course, but you will be required to create the service district.
So if you're required, then you can take the word assume out of it then.
I think that's correct. If you're going to approve this community, if you're going to approve this application with a community water system.
I think probably another way to look at this would be that it's established by ordinance that we have the water district established pursuant to this type of a development community water well. As Commissioner Idlet pointed out, that puts us maybe in the unenviable position of having to enforce a tax, if you will, on the maintenance of a system that is, for that community. But the other side of that is that with the establishment of that district, it will take the burden off of the rest of the taxpayers in the unlikely event that something goes wrong with that water system and they come to us and say, you got to fix it, we got to have water. This is a way to kind of protect the county, the taxpayers, so that we don't have to step in, we being the county taxpayers, to fix a system that, and I think that's probably why it's in the ordinance, is to.
But when you use the word assume.
There's no assumption here. It's what it is.
All right, my second question is, are we sure that one well will be suffice?
The engineer for the project has done some preliminary modeling, but before the technical review committee approves the construction drawings, we'll absolutely be sure, because first of all, the county engineer will have to approve it, and second of all, they'll have to have permitting from the state that approves it as well.
I think it speaks to an 115-foot well.
Yeah.
In this, in our case analysis, they speak to a deep well of 115 feet. So there's some issues speaking to whether or not there will be a filtration requirement.
So there's two levels of approval that must exist before this thing can be constructed. So yes, it will be adequate to serve the needs of the development.
Another question. I assume they're going to have to put in fire ponds or whatever for fire protection.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Hearing none, I'm going to open the public hearing. First person signed up is Denise Kennedy. Mr. McCree will be operating the timer.
Good evening. I'm Denise Kennedy. I live at 892 South Mills Road. I came to the planning committee. There was a whole lot of stuff. I actually went and looked at the land use permits now. And as the committee that's allowed to change from agricultural straight and adding residential, I wanted to point out a few facts. First, from page 2-6, it indicates that the majority of the new residents coming to Currituck County are actually coming down from Hampton Roads. As a person that works in Hampton Roads, I can tell you that the reason people are coming here is not for half-acre to three-quarter-acre lots. It's for 1 to 3 acre lots. They want land. They want separation. Also, on page 4-6, it was discussing the septic systems, which are going to have to be placed on these less than three-quarter acre lots. I live directly across the street. I know for a fact that many lots within the Crown Point subdivision had to be tested repeatedly to allow for the appropriate drainage for the septic systems to be installed. And is that going to be able to be accomplished on less than an acre? Next, the land use also allows for a conventional use of land that still maintains open space, but it's defined on page 7-6, and it actually says up for 30,000 square foot lots. That's within the land use of 2006. And finally, the set-aside space that they are saying that they are going to do is actually wetlands, and on page 7-6, it states that it has to be usable. These wetlands are not going to be usable space, open space whatsoever. Finally, I did a little bit of research on what's for sale in Moayak right now. I did a search on RE/MAX, and right now there's 40 lots on RE/MAX, 100 homes. Of those, 72 are on less than an acre, so 24 are on 1 to 5 acres, and 4 are on greater than 5 acres. Given that ratio, it sounds to me like it's a little bit harder to sell the smaller lotted homes, and yet we're going to do another one. Not 1, but 2. And I'm not sure what the lot size is, but there's recently been a rezoning that was allowed on Backwoods Road. And all 3 of these subdivisions are within a half-mile radius to a three-quarter-mile radius of where I currently live. I'd like for the board to consider not approving this change for that land.
Thank you.
Mr. Woody, what's the lot sizes again for this development?
Lot sizes, I believe,
0.49 houses per acre.
around 30,000 square feet, approximately. I think there's some variation in those, but
You say around 30,000 square foot?
yes.
I think he said
30,000 square foot is the lot size. That's no. It's 58 acres and 28 units. So that's
density.
Half a unit per acre.
Yeah, that's density versus lot size, which are two different things.
Yeah, I think one of the things we've talked about before, and Mr. McCree, correct me if I'm wrong, what a lot of time, and this was an issue in some previous discussions we've had relative to neighboring developments that had larger sized lots. This is a use permit that we're looking at tonight, so we would have to consider, when you're talking about lot sizes, we're not talking a disparity in sizes of lots of surrounding developments. We're talking use of the land. Is that what we're talking about? In other words, if you've got three-quarter acre lots in one development and quarter acre lots next to it, that's not necessarily a violation of consistency of land use, is it?
That's correct. Compatibility is looking at the types of uses, not the size of lots.
So would that be germane to our consideration relative to the requirements that we are mandated to look at for the purposes of approval of this?
I mean, it's something you can certainly take into consideration with all the evidence that's presented to you, and it's within your judgment to make a determination as to whether one weighs out the other. But again, bottom line, compatibility, you should be looking at what are the uses on this proposed application versus uses on surrounding property.
Mr. Woody, for clarification, does this meet the requirements of the 2006 land use plan?
It does.
Does this meet the requirements of the just approved small area plan?
Yes.
Okay. Only point I would make is if we're going to have plans and tell people what the plans are and they submit according to those plans, then if we don't like the rules, we need to change them. But consistency is important. If you're going to set forth a land use plan and then people go and come forward under that land use plan and then all of a sudden you don't recognize the land use plan, then we need to throw the land use plan out, is my only point. And we just redid the land use plan in Moyock 3 months ago, and that was a public document. That wasn't something the commissioners did. That was something the general public did, correct?
That's correct.
Did any of the commissioners participate as a member of that?
No.
So that was brought to us by the community.
It was community driven, that's correct.
Okay, thank you.
One other question for Mr. Woody. And also, the community water system is a viable alternative for water as recognized through our plans and policies and procedures, correct?
In my opinion, yes.
Okay.
It is.
And
it's allowed for in our plans, and there's a provision in the ordinance that specifically allows community water systems.
That's
so,
what
yes.
I was asking.
All right, any other questions? All right, next is Vernon Garrett.
Mr. Chairman, County Commissioners, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Vernon Garrett, South Mills Road, Moyock. I have a couple of concerns about this development. For one, borders or boundaries as to how the farmer, me, can be protected from the subdivision, and how the new owners can be protected from the dust from the soybean crops and so on. And I also have questions about the water drawdown ability for this water plant and how it's going to affect the neighbors in the future. And I'd like to reserve the rest of my time until Mr. Bissell speaks. He may answer my questions.
Mr. Bissell? You've been called on.
I'm Mark Bissell of the Bissell Professional Group. My office is in Kitty Hawk. And, well, as Mr. Woody said, we're proposing to put 28 lots on a 57-acre tract. And the lot size here is actually very similar to the lot sizes that you see in the adjacent subdivisions of Duck Ridge and Quail Point. The big difference between this subdivision and those two subdivisions is that they were approved with 5% open space and 30,000 square foot lots. What we have is 61.4% open space. And so you have really the equivalent of 2-acre lots on this site. And of that open space, about 60% of that is upland open space. And I think it might be helpful if I introduced, this is not part of the case analysis, but I do want to pass around a copy of the approved conservation and development plan that really gives you a better picture of the of what the open space looks like.
While he's doing that, Mr. Woody, did we not implement that there had to be a 50-foot buffer between agriculture and homes?
So all the green areas and the yellow areas on there are...
Hold on.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, the Unified Development Ordinance requires a 50-foot farmland compatibility buffer that also requires vegetation to be planted within that buffer. So yes, we do have that protection between active agricultural areas and single-family development.
My next question is, Ms. Kennedy brought up about the type of land that's set aside. She was reading from a county document. Could you comment on that? Because if I need to know.
Well, I think like Mr. Bissell said, when you set aside open space, it can't all be wetland or unusable. So there will be portions of it that are usable for things like farmland buffers, for stormwater ponds, etc. In this case, I believe, as Mr. Bissell said, more than 50% of the open space remains upland usable open space. So it's not just all wetland that's open space.
So that could be farmed. If it's already being farmed, it could continue being farmed?
It could be. You can farm the open space, that's correct.
Well, I know one of the big problems we've had with open space is planting grass, and then the homeowner association's got to mow all these acres of grass. It needs to be trees or farmed, because that's killing these homeowner associations.
And I agree. And I think a lot of this open space, portion of it's going to be wetland, so no maintenance with that. Other portions will be stormwater ponds, which of course will be maintenance, but not grass mowing. And then you've got the vegetation or the wood buffers that are planted in a lot of it. So staff's been trying to work with developers to avoid future maintenance costs in the form of grass mowing.
Okay. Go ahead, Mr. Bissell. I'm sorry.
Thank you. No, that's fine. That was really part of the presentation. The plan shows the 50-foot wooded buffers to the adjacent farmland. We have left a buffer along South Mills Road to allow for potential widening, and also for some screening there. There will be a tree buffer along South Mills Road. And like Mr. Woody said, part of it will be stormwater management. There will be 2 stormwater management ponds that will reduce the runoff in accordance with the new stormwater rules. Our calculations show that the runoff will actually be reduced post-development to about 25% of the runoff that you currently have as farmland. So we're actually going to be reducing the runoff to about a quarter of what it currently is. The developer has also offered to contribute toward the maintenance of the existing ditch that drains Crown Point through that easement. It's in need of maintenance, and we have had a lot of conversation with the homeowners association and have made an agreement with their president to contribute to that effort, which they're planning to do this fall. As far as the community water system, we actually have 2 state-approved well sites between this project and Backwoods, just down the street. And we have done test wells on both of those sites and submitted a preliminary engineering report that the county engineer and the water department manager have both reviewed. And the test wells indicate that actually either of those wells could serve both of the developments by itself, but we want to have redundancy so that we have 2 wells that will back one another up. The preliminary water testing that was done shows iron of 0.2 in one of the wells and 0.1 milligram per liter in the other. The state limit that requires treatment is 0.3. So when you blend those together, preliminary are about half of what you would have to, where the state would trigger iron removal treatment. There will be additional testing done before we put the system online. Additionally, the state requires something that's called a water system management plan as part of the final approval. And that answers questions like what is it going to take to operate it, who's going to operate it, who's responsible, what will be the cost of operation, what will be the source of the funds, and how much money should be in reserves for ongoing operation and maintenance. And that will all be part of the final approval process. Preliminarily, we have done, based on the specific yield from the test wells, we will be using only a fraction of the specific capacity of that aquifer.
Would that have any, and was I correct, would the depths about 115 feet, something like that?
Yes, we had actually contracted for 115 feet, but they're not quite that deep. He ran out of productive aquifer at about 90 feet.
Would that withdrawal down, and I'm assuming you're talking about for agricultural purposes, no? Neighbors for their wells.
Point, the Hutchins family, yes, sir.
So are we talking, help me out here, are we talking shallow wells versus?
The Hutchins.
Okay, well, I was just trying to set up the question.
Yes.
So the aquifer you're talking about, that how does that juxtapose with shallow well or shallow wells?
These wells are proposed to be screened from 75 to 90 feet, and there is a fairly good aquitard in between, above the 75-foot level that actually restricts the, kind of isolates that.
So an aquitard, would that, well, tell us what that means.
And that means it means the water moves very slowly through that layer.
Oh, clay.
So I guess to address the question that
So
brought up, would there be an impact? Is that addressed in the engineering or the engineering report relative to the wells? Would that have a practical effect on the wells he's talking about?
So if there's an existing well that's 30 feet or 50 feet deep or something like that, then it would be isolated by the aquitard from the aquifer that we're pumping. But one of the things that you also do as part of the final state permitting is a 24-hour drawdown and recovery test. So both of these wells will be pumped at full bore for 24 hours and recorded, and the drawdown recorded every hour, and it'll actually stabilize, and that will tell us, at what level will that stabilize and what is the safe yield. Preliminarily, that safe yield is about 50 or 60 gallons a minute per well, and we're planning to pump them at only about half of that, about maybe 30 or 35 gallons. But that will be part of the final state permitting, and also the how does that aquifer recover when you stop pumping? So that's all considered by the state in the final approval of the design.
Okay.
Chairman.
Yes, sir.
You had your hand up.
Mr. Woody, I'm looking at the aerial. Is that an old bar pit? Did I see there? Excuse me.
I'm not sure if that was a bar pit or not.
Well, it looks like a body of water.
I see it, but I don't know if it was a bar. I don't know what the history of that body of water is.
Is that water used for agriculture?
I don't know.
That probably was a bar pit, more than likely. Go ahead, Mr. Ivey.
You represent the applicant, correct?
Yes.
Okay. It was the applicant amenable to increasing that water main to 8 inch?
What I would like to suggest is that, one of the things we're going to do is run a water line along South Mills Road to connect the two properties. Our calculations show that, that a 6-inch water main within the subdivision should be plenty adequate to provide the future domestic as well as fire flow, but that for our purposes, a 6-inch line and running in between them would be sufficient. But for the county's future purposes, the line along South Mills Road you may want to upsize that.
So
you didn't answer my question. Are you willing to upsize the mains to 8 inch in the development that you're building, or whatever new mains that you're putting in? That's my question.
Well, that's really a financial consideration I got to consult with my client on.
So the answer is right now no, or undetermined.
Well, maybe.
Yeah. Okay.
Is that a definite maybe?
Well.
If that's something you all feel is necessary, then we would consider doing that.
Well, obviously we thought it was necessary. I mean, it's something that's going to come into play, but But anyhow, second thing, what's the average daily usage per unit, house unit, that you're talking about drawing on these wells, and what kind of storage capacity is going to be in this water system you're talking about?
Well, the basis of design is 400 gallons per house, but in actuality, you're only going to see about half of that actually used.
So you're talking 400 gallons per day.
Yes.
And a total number of units of
28.
28 plus
20.
Plus 20, so 48.
So in round numbers, 20,000 gallons a day.
20,000 gallons per day.
Basis of design. I expect that they'll actually use about 10,000. And from the specific yield of the aquifer, based on the test wells, that will produce about 150,000 gallons a day.
Okay. All right. And I guess my final question is, you're talking about stormwater ponds. You're going to have two.
Yes.
Drainage of the stormwater ponds to off-site areas. Is there any issues or problems with easements and the ditching or the land from the stormwater ponds to where it gets to the final destinations?
Well, the water all eventually ends up in Getty Mill Canal,
right,
via the existing drainage ditch that runs along the southeast property line. And
so is there any easement issues?
No, there's a non-exclusive easement that runs through there that was granted to Crown Point, and like I said in the first part of the presentation, we'll actually be reducing the contribution to that ditch by about 3/4.
And I guess this would be probably a question for Mr. Weatherly. I see you sitting back there. I know Mr. Doxey has, as we talked about drainage in Moyock and all the different issues that are surrounding it, the particular ditching that he's talking about, what kind of condition and what kind of shape is it to handle the capacity for...
Mr. Weatherly would need to be sworn if you're going to consider his testimony.
Yeah,
okay.
He's not sworn.
Okay, well, then...
You want to get sworn?
Sure.
Put your left hand on the Bible and raise your right hand. You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
He's sworn now, Mr. Idle.
Okay. Won't leave. Do we know the condition of the ditching going off-site to...
No, sir.
Between where we're talking about there?
And I'll tell you why. When we developed the new stormwater manual, one of the biggest considerations in that was off-site drainage.
Right.
And as Mr. Bissell knows, that was always a big contention, to get permission off-site to clean out the ditches, whether we required the developer to get easements or not. So in lieu of looking at that, what we did was we strengthened our requirements on holding the stormwater on site. So Mr. Bissell has met the stormwater requirements for retention, but we haven't looked off-site.
Okay. All right. Well, you kind of alluded to my next question. If there was improvements that had to be made, would this be part of this process to move water from the stormwater ponds to where it needs to go?
We should certainly look at that, and I will talk to Mr. Bissell about that to see what we can do.
I mean, we know we've got major flooding issues in Moyock, and I don't want to exacerbate them, and that's all there's to it. So I mean, Mr. Bissell has testified or told us that we were only going to have 25% of the current runoff. Well, I know and you know that if it goes in a stormwater pond, it's got to go somewhere after it goes into stormwater pond.
Correct.
And so
maybe you're probably more familiar.
Let me speak to that. The ditch that receives the stormwater does need to be maintained. The Crown Point Homeowners Association is committed to doing maintenance of that ditch. It has been quite a few years, I understand, since anything was done to it, and they have recently had it surveyed, and it shows that it doesn't have enough fall and that part of it's silted in and those kinds of things. So there's about 2,700 feet of drainage ditch that's going to be maintained, and the developer of Saddlebrook has agreed to participate in the cost of doing that this fall.
Thank you. That answers my question.
Okay.
You say Crown Point has agreed to participate in cleaning the ditch.
Saddlebrook has agreed to help
Saddlebrook.
Crown Point maintain
Okay.
that ditch.
Okay.
It's basically their drainage ditch, but Saddlebrook is going to help.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Willett.
Chris, I'll have one more question. You
Yes,
said
ma'am.
that the water line along South Mills is going to run from which property to which property?
From Backwoods Estate, or Backwoods Reserve to Saddlebrook. Backwoods is just west of Northwest Backwoods Road on South Mills Road.
And will the water system also feed to that property?
It will, and those two systems will be interconnected, so they'll back one another up.
I have one last question. Ms. Kennedy discussed about the wastewater system being on the soils there. What type of soils are we talking about?
Provisionally suitable, according to the health department.
So the health department is going to have to go to each.
Well, they already have. They've been to each of the 28 lots and determined that they're provisionally suitable for an on-site wastewater system.
So the health department's already determined
we
they're
have
okay.
we have 28 site evaluation reports that have passed.
All right. Anyone else?
I want to make sure I understand. You're saying one well is going to do 48 homes? Is that right?
2 wells.
2 wells.
One well could do 48 homes, but we're providing 2 that each will do it.
Mr. Garrett, did you get your question answered?
Yes, sir, for the most part. Mr. Chairman, I think there's enough rules in place to satisfy my water concerns that will surface. I am concerned about a buffer between the Walston farm, which is on the east side of the subdivision, and the Cutchins farm, which is on the west side of the subdivision, both which we farm. To protect the potential landowners and the farm families there that have been there for hundreds of years. One other question, if I may. Who is going to own the common space in this subdivision?
The homeowners association will own
Will
it.
own the whole the whole property.
Is that not correct, Mr. Woody?
That is correct, yes.
Okay. I think that answers my questions. Thank you, sir.
And the ordinance requires a 50-foot vegetative buffer between
It does, that's correct.
between the farm and the subdivision.
Does it define vegetative?
It does.
I'd be surprised if we didn't.
Well, okay. Could you tell me
yes,
what that
I can.
definition is?
It is it's a double row of a canopy tree.
Good.
So it's going to be, you have a 50-foot buffer, and the first 25 closest to the farm will remain vacant. And the next 25 closest to the houses will have a double row of canopy trees planted.
Very good.
So
Riparian buffer. Okay.
Would be a pretty significant buffer once it matures.
That's good. I think it'll protect everyone. Okay, thank you,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Chairman.
Ms. Kennedy, I know you wanted to ask one quick thing, or are you okay?
Actually, I want to go back to, sorry,
You need to,
Mr. Chairman.
you need to come up here. And this is typically out of order, but I'm allowing you to come on back for a quick question.
Just a statement. My well is at 80 feet. I had to have a water treatment system put into my home for both the smell of the water and the iron and the taste of the water. So I don't know how an aquifer across the street that's 10 feet different is different.
That water would have to be treated. If it requires treatment, it will be treated, correct?
State would mandate that, I would assume.
Correct. So far, it's been tested for just those parameters that you can test for on site when you're doing the test well. But the state requires a list about this long of parameters to be tested before they allow it to be used as a public water supply system. And if it requires treatment, then it'll get treatment.
Okay. All right. Any commissioners have any other questions? Hearing none, I'm going to close the public hearing and ask the board for their motion. The crickets are chirping.
Mr. Chairman, can we continue this? I don't feel comfortable with the water. I don't, because, I mean, I know there's state requirements, but, you know, we heard a horror story today that we've heard about with, you know, people are putting the wells in right, but is the water quality there? And, you know, that may or may not be a factor right here, but that's my concerns right now.
And along with I agree with Mr. Petrie about continuing, because I certainly cannot support this unless they're willing to upsize that water main to 8-inch.
That's in a motion. I will.
I'd like to make a motion to continue until we do some more homework on the water quality.
Second.
I second that.
Could you please tell staff what it is you want for your homework?
Well, you do test wells. Is when you do a test well, is the quality tested?
At least some portion of the quality was tested. So Mr. Bissell did reference they tested for iron in the water, but I don't know the full components of what was tested in the test wells.
Okay, when we heard about the homeowner in Moyock that bought a home and the inspector had to get the phone call about the water quality, it's my understanding that the builder followed all the criteria to put the well in as far as state standards, but the water quality wasn't there. Is that right?
I don't know the situation firsthand, but yes, I would assume for the well to be permitted, they would have been subject to any state or local laws in place.
But all they said was that it was put in correctly. The water quality wasn't there. That's what I thought we were told. I'm not sure the water quality is there.
But I think, if I could, I think we're talking two different things. From previous testimony, Mr. Bissell said that before this could be approved, there was, and I think he referred to some long list of testing criteria that the state would mandate that the water system pass. I think what you were talking to was an individual residence that was not state permitted.
It was still in Moyock, and it still could be water quality. Now, Mr. Bissell, it's my understanding, was talking about that the wells in the water system would be put in correctly. That's what you're referring to. I'm not saying he wouldn't put it in correctly. I'm just saying the water quality, I don't think, you know, I'm not confident that it's there. I'm not confident that the, now I think he might have agreed about the 8-inch water line. But as far as softeners and water quality, I just don't think it's there.
My best recollection was that there was testimony given that the state would require the passing of testing criteria relative to the water quality and any mandated filtration or treatment thereby, because they were going to have to certify and put in the parameters. That's my understanding of it.
Okay, all I'm saying is that it's my understanding that the state says the well's put in right. They don't have anything to do with water quality. I think that's what staff was told about, the example that we heard about earlier. That's all I'm saying.
Okay, that just wasn't my recollection.
Okay, well, I'm just asking to continue it until we determine the water quality.
And Mr. Woody, I think what we need to do is take I don't know if there's statistics, complaint-driven, some of the other wells in the surrounding area, because like I said, I've had lots of complaints from that area of the water quality and the wells that are currently, and of course I can't just give you addresses and residences, but if we can check into some of the surrounding areas, lots and check on that as far as some complaint-driven, however, statistics, data, whatever we can find.
Let me ask a question again. What specifically is it you want the applicant and the staff to bring back to us at the next meeting?
I would like for somebody to give us a report on water quality. I'm not asking to deny, I'm asking to continue. Now, if it's this important, they should be able to determine what the water quality is.
Okay.
Very simply, from my perspective, an answer, yes or no, as to whether they're willing to upgrade the water system to 8-inch. That's all. Not a maybe, but a yes or no.
Okay, so that was part of your motion. You made the motion.
Okay, well, I'll make a motion to add the 8-inch water line.
Okay.
And I'm just asking to continue it. They should be able to do this if they're going to do their homework.
Okay, and then I have one last question, Mr. Woody. On a private well, I was kind of involved in when that one up in Moyock became an issue. It's my understanding on a private well, all they do is check for bacteria.
Right. Chloroform.
Chloroform, whatever. And they do I think they inject it with
Clorox,
chlorine, and then they take a sample after that and check it for chloroform. What they're doing goes through a different set of testing. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
Okay, well,
All right.
vote no.
Well, I'm trying to get it straight in my
Well,
head.
it's simple, yes or no. I want to know what
Okay.
the water quality is.
We have a motion to continue. We have a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Oppose? No.
No.
So motion carries 3-2. I guess this would be rescheduled at our next meeting. Can you get that information by then? I mean, it's in your ball court.
Yes.
Okay.
And the board understands you need to reopen the hearing and continue with the evidentiary phase.
So,
Okay. Next item, public hearing and action. Yes, sir. Okay. Commissioner Petrie's asked for a 5-minute recess. At this time, I would like to call the meeting back to order and move to our next agenda item. Item B, public hearing and action, PB 1414 CASP, Inc., request for a conditional rezoning of 37 acres from light industrial to conditional district single-family mainland on property located in Moyock on Inventors Drive, which is located on the east side of Currituck Highway, tax map 9, parcels 26A and 26B, Moyock Township. Mr. Woody.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a conditional rezoning plan, which means that it's under your legislative decision-making capabilities because it's a rezoning, so it's not a use permit, and you don't have the sworn testimony or the findings of fact. And what this request is, it's 37 acres in the Moyock area, and you can see on the shared or aerial photograph that it's off of Inventors Drive, which is a parcel of land that's zoned industrial. It was a zone for an industrial park, I guess, many years ago probably. And it is a wooded site, and it's remained basically undeveloped to this point. It was actually rezoned for light industrial in 1999, so it's remained undeveloped. It's a wooded site. You can see, if you look at the zoning pattern, I want to spend a second on this. It's the one industrial tract that's really located in the center of an area that over time has basically become a residential area. So in a lot of sense, I would argue that this tract evolving or moving away from industrial probably makes sense given the context that you have an assisted living facility and residential subdivision to the south. You have an agricultural field to the north, but also in the immediate area, you've got the Shingle Landing subdivision, Baxter Estates. So there's a number of single-family subdivisions that have kind of popped up in this area. The land use plan designates this as full service, and I want to make a distinction here. In this particular case, the land use plan designates this as full service, and the Moyock small area plan does as well. So both those documents designate this area as full service. And what full service means is it's the area of the county where you're going to experience the most intense, the densest type of development pattern. So it's kind of the core of your community. In Moyock, this is kind of located in the center of it, adjacent to the highway. You've got full service areas all down the county, in Grandy, Point Harbor, etc. What full service means is that densities can increase. And I want to go through the land use plan first. The land use plan says densities in full service are 1 to 2 units per acre. However, when central sewer and central water are available, the land use plan indicates that densities can increase to 3 to 4 units per acre. The Moyock small area plan takes a similar approach. It says that in the full service area, densities can be between 1.5 units up to 3 acres, 3 units per acre when you have utilities in place and infrastructure to support those densities. The one thing I'll note the land use plan does, it's a little beyond the small area plan. The one step it takes a little beyond the land use plan is the small area plan has a policy that relates to compatibility and strongly advocates that when you have new development and existing development, to try to do things to promote compatibility. So when you have maybe small lots beside larger lots, to have buffers, larger setbacks, transition areas, fencing, screening, other measures like that. So that is something we considered in this request as part of the small area plan. The current use is undeveloped, and you can see on the screen a conceptual plan. As you know, with conditional zonings, a conceptual plan is required for your consideration. If this rezoning is approved, they'll have to develop according to this plan, so it's not something that can change or be modified. This particular rezoning has some conditions that go along with it. One, that the use be a conservation subdivision. There'll be a maximum of 74 homes. The minimum lot size is 10,000 square feet. Existing trees will be protected and preserved to the greatest extent practicable. And then buffers to surrounding properties will exceed the Currituck County requirements. And what you can see on the conceptual plan is you can see the street layout. There are street connections to the farm to the north and the county property and Shingle Landing open space to the east. You can see the lot pattern. And, of course, most of the trees surrounding the perimeter of the property are being maintained as buffers from the adjoining properties, and you can see the stormwater ponds. And a couple of things I want to go through on this particular rezoning is first, county water is available, and this development is required to connect to the county water system. The developer is requesting connection to the Moyock Central Sewer System. If this zoning is approved, then the developer would be able to move forward with the reservation form. That has not been filed yet. Transportation, the development has access to Currituck Highway through an existing unimproved right-of-way. They're putting in the primary road along that existing unimproved right-of-way. There is a rail crossing located at the property's development entrance, and the proposed road and rail crossing that serve the development will both have to be built to NCDOT standards. So again, any crossing improvement will be required up front to be built to the DOT standards. And I think the idea is eventually to have the road system and that crossing turned over to the state for maintenance. Proposed development is in a shaded X-flood zone. It has wetland inventory. The wetland inventory maps indicate there may be wetland characteristics on the property. Don't know that for sure. If this is approved and they file for a preliminary plat, a wetland delineation will be required, and of course any wetlands will be put in open space. Proposed development is located on Roanoke soils, which are generally considered poorly drained. However, the wastewater, the proposed connection to the central wastewater system will mitigate some of the concerns with an on-site septic system in those soils. This particular subdivision is 74 units, which comes out to a density of 2 dwelling units per acre. And again, it has 14.84 acres of open space, which is about 40% of the development site. A community meeting was required for this request as a conditional zoning. The meeting was held May 15th, 2014 at the Moyock Library. No adjacent property owners attended that meeting. The meeting was notified as required, but again, nobody showed up to attend the meeting. The TRC has reviewed this request and does recommend approval of the request because it's consistent with the goals, objectives, and policies of the land use plan and the small area plan, and it's compatible with the existing and proposed uses surrounding the land subject to the application. And also it's residential is the appropriate zoning district for this tract of land. One additional comment I'll make is that there is a larger lot subdivision to the northeast, and then to the south of this property you have phase 2 of Shingle Landing, which isn't platted yet. So to a certain extent, in the larger lot subdivision to the northeast, you have one lot you can see there that's basically near this development, but that one lot has wooded open space or a wooded buffer between that lot and this subdivision. And again, the plat for Shingle Landing, the adjacent land to the south is not platted, so there's no homes there yet. So in some respects, staff's position on compatibility is based on the fact that there really isn't a lot of adjoining large lot residents beside this, and additionally with the wooded buffers that remain intact, I don't know that from adjoining properties you'd even be able to see these lots in this subdivision. So that did go into our decision making in recommending approval of this. The planning board heard this request at their previous meeting, and they too recommended approval as submitted. And I can answer any questions.
Questions for Mr. Wood? Yes, sir.
Okay, to the south, where's the G's group in that blank piece of property right there where it's SFM? Go back to the.
That's correct. Yes.
Okay, so we're going to have 10,000 square foot lots to the south and 10,000 square foot lots to the north.
If this zoning district's approved, yes.
And you're saying that that's not going to affect the drainage in Moyock? And I know what we passed, but that doesn't mean that I like it.
I think.
Now, you just said that the soil type was not conducive to good drainage.
For on-site wastewater. And it's probably not good conducive for stormwater, but they'll have to manage that by having larger ponds. They've got to make up the lack of infiltration has to be captured in the holding devices.
But I'm looking at the whole picture. To the south, how many 10,000 square foot lots are at G's Group?
G's Group is approximately 75 lots.
And these are how many?
76.
So we got 151 lots of 10,000 square foot surrounding Shingle Landing.
Yes.
And it's questionable soil.
It's questionable soil in the sense that everything in Moyock is, and it has to be managed through the construction review process.
Still questionable soil.
Yes, it's not defined as good soil, no.
All right. Is there going to be interconnectivity with the back of Shingle Landing? Because we've been talking about that for a year.
Yes, the subdivision proposes a connecting street to the Shingle Landing open space. And if you look on this map where you see the R, that subdivision, there's a road that comes down and connects into the county's land in the Shingle Landing open space as well. So if the county's tract develops and there's a road put in that track, it would connect Baxter Road, this subdivision, and if G's Group develops, and G's Group all the way down to Shingle Landing Road. So this is connected and is building the connectivity on this side of the highway.
If we build, but the road through county property
is a key. It would be a key connection,
and that's
yes.
not done yet.
It is not done yet. No.
And there's probably no plans. I don't think. Okay, thank you.
Next.
Mr. Woody, my biggest concern is the safety of the railroad crossing, and we went down this path for a long time in the Shingle Landing division. What provisions, contracts, discussions been held with the railroad, and the cost that's going to be assigned, responsible to the developer until that is taken over? We've got the insurances.
The staff has made the applicant aware of the concerns with the railroad and the cost and potential liabilities. To this point, staff has not had a discussion with the railroad. However, if this zoning is approved, we would look for that information to be in hand when the preliminary plat was submitted, or at least those discussions to occur and to have a plan for how that's going to move forward.
And those discussions can't be held until it's platted. Is that correct?
They could be held but with just the rezoning at this point, we haven't had in-depth discussions. We've talked about the railroad crossing in a preliminary fashion, again indicating that it's a concern of the county and it needs to be there needs to be a plan in place for how that's going to be constructed and then eventually turned over to the NCDOT.
Okay. Well, again, my concerns are because of the painful and very expensive process that Shingle Landing is still going through. I think that needs to be considered.
I agree. It's a valid concern.
It's huge.
I got one more question.
Go ahead.
Where is the wastewater going to cross the railroad tracks?
The wastewater is not going to cross the railroad tracks because I believe it is proposed to connect into the force main on Moyock Landing Drive. Is that correct? Yes. So if you look at this development plan,
so it's going to go. Is it going to cross Shingle Landing Road?
It's going to go down and connect onto there's a line that goes under the railroad tracks and services the assisted living facility. This subdivision would tie into that line that currently services the assisted living facility. Okay. So the sewer line is already underneath the railroad tracks on Moyock Landing Drive.
Go ahead.
Sure. I'm going to go back 2 slides. That, okay. if what I'm looking at, everything in red is general business, is that?
That's correct.
And you're telling us, or you're saying that proper zoning for this is residential?
I think so. That general business property has been platted and incorporated into a residential subdivision. So while it may be zoned general business, its use is residential.
Just a question.
Yeah.
And one other question. Yes, I'll ask the chairman. Where are we at with the sewer policy in regards to residential sewer?
I sent an email to the county manager over the weekend asking where we were on that, and I haven't checked my emails to see if I've got a response.
It's imperative that we get this done.
That was a priority that the board laid out, I guess, 3 months ago or more. And some other things have moved ahead of it, so I guess Mr. Woody would be the proper one to ask when that's coming to us.
I'm prepared to have a work session on that at your next meeting.
Okay. Okay, we're prepared. Okay. Anyone else? Other questions? Mr. Woody, in regards to some of the planning issues, if this were to be approved, that's when those issues such as the railroad crossing and things like that would have to be addressed satisfactorily?
Yes, more of the infrastructure issues will be discussed as part of a preliminary plat submission, should this be approved. That's correct.
Does this fit within the recently approved small area plan?
Like I said in the staff report, I think it fits within the small area plan and the 2006 land use plan.
Okay. Any other?
Would it be conditional rezoning? What are the conditions of the rezoning?
The conditions are the use be a conservation subdivision. There'd be a maximum of 74 homes. I think I said 76 earlier, but it's 74. A minimum lot size of 10,000 square feet. Existing trees will be protected and preserved to the greatest degree practicable. And then buffers to surrounding properties will exceed Currituck County requirements.
You read that while ago.
Yeah.
All right.
I got another question.
Yes.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
A couple of questions. I was looking, and contained in our packet are several elevations. They're not part of the conditional rezoning requirements. Are they there just for our?
No, they'll be incorporated into the approval.
As part of a conditional rezoning?
As part of a conditional rezoning, yes. Yes, part of the submittal requirements, they have to submit not just a conceptual plan, but also preliminary elevations for building types.
And correct me if I'm wrong, this is a rezoning request, so the negotiations for the railroad crossing and the other necessary requirements for preliminary platting, are they usually done at this junction, or are they later done because of the cost associated with their execution, whereby this is as you said, it's not a quasi-judicial hearing, it is a legislative hearing. So more properly, since I've been on this board, those sorts of questions and inquiries and planning were usually done after the rezoning as a norm. Is
that's correct as a norm? But I want to say, and I think the county attorney would agree with this, I don't think you're precluded from addressing concerns you have through the conditional zoning process. So I mean, you may, any condition on the zoning approval, the applicant would have to accept that condition, but if you have concerns, you can certainly propose a condition if you want to see something in particular by the preliminary plat submittal. So you do have a little flexibility.
So there would be no restriction if additional conditions were applied relative to this application?
I don't think so.
The only restriction being, again, as Mr. Woody said, that the applicant would have to agree to that condition as well. If the board was insisting on that condition, the applicant does not agree, then you could not approve the rezoning.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
We had talked about a work session, talked about compatibility and lot size. And we had talked about the inner core of a subdivision having smaller lots and the outer ring of the tree having larger lots, right?
That's
so
correct.
It's compatible with
Yes.
Shingle Landing is roughly 20,000 square foot lots.
Single landing's probably closer to 30,000 square foot
Okay.
lots.
Was this compatibility, was the compatibility considered with the lots that are going to be closest to Shingle Landing? You know what I'm talking about. You said, and your example was, and you drew it like a wagon wheel.
Yeah.
And this obviously is rectangular shape. But all I'm saying is, if you look to the north and the south directly, what are the lot sizes?
Well, there's nothing platted, so right now there isn't any lot sizes.
Okay, well, if you look northeast.
There's one lot there northeast, and that lot is
Well, in the R section, what size lots are they?
They're about 1 acre, or about 40,000 square feet. Excuse me.
Okay, so in the R section, we got 40,000 square feet, and then in the if we're looking at a clock here, R is at 1 o'clock. If you look at 5 o'clock, we've got 20,000 square feet or 30,000 square feet. Okay.
I think in this case, the only existing lot that's adjacent to this tract, and we did look at that, to this tract of land, is one of the lots where the R is in Baxter Estates. And you can see they haven't placed any of their small lots adjacent to that existing larger lot, if you look on the conceptual
All right,
plan.
and this is my humble opinion, that you can't just look at the adjoining lot. You have to look at the surrounding area. We'll say 2 lots over. If you just look at the adjoining lot, I don't think that's a fair assessment to the Moyock area. But what I'm concerned about is, and I'll use the word that everybody's using, compatibility. And I said it earlier, you got 1 acre lots, you got 20,000 square foot lots, and now all of a sudden we got 150 10,000 square foot lots, and that's not compatibility to me. And that's why I'm trying to take your example, not trying to beat you up, but okay, we're going to kind of let it meander over here from small lot to a big lot. Guess what? It's chicken salad, and you know where I'm going with this one. And now what's happening is in the Moyock area, there's no in my opinion, there's no compatibility. It's 10,000 here, 10,000 here, 10,000 here, 10,000 here, and it's coming. It's like a freight train, and we're not taking into consideration. I know what everybody has said, what we passed, but this word compatibility is like a bright light in my face, and I just don't see it.
In zoning context, the staff has tried to look at compatibility, but I'll say up front, we've done that on the basis of the adjoining parcel. Have we taken that out to a broader look? No, we haven't. But it also, I feel like if we want to look at compatibility that way, then I think the county needs to consider the policy under which we're reviewing these rezonings.
Well, I mean, again, if you just look at the adjoining lot, that's easy to do. I mean, you just take one lot and comparing it to 150, and that's I think that's what you're saying, is that one lot is smaller.
Well, we look at all the adjoining tracts, but I mean, we haven't traditionally went in terms of just lot size compatibility. We haven't went beyond the adjoining tract.
Okay,
I'm not saying we can't.
But okay, if you look at west of the R, that's agriculture. Is that right?
That's correct.
Guess what? You know what's coming. You know it just as we're sitting here and the sun will come up across Currituck Sound tomorrow. Mm-hmm. There's going to be somebody standing there, and you know what? Here we go, boys. The floodgates open, and I don't like it. I just don't like it. And we're sitting here. Our flanks are exposed, and there's the flank right there. And you know what? We got more 10,000 square foot lots coming on Survey Road. Is that right?
There are 10,000 square foot lots on Survey Road, but they're already approved.
I know, but the thing of it is they're going to be there.
Yeah. Oh, yes. In terms of coming as development, yes, that's correct.
So when the Moyock Small Area Plan was developed, I know everybody signed off on it, but all I'm saying is this. People wanted that rural atmosphere. You heard the lady say earlier that, people move down here. Guess what? We're staring at Green Run. That's my opinion. And you know what? We can't stop it. We've got to stop it. And at some point in time, in my next 2 months, I want to make motions to start requiring, I started talking about it in April, 10,000 square foot lots, or 20,000 square foot lots. So I'm going to tell the board right now, between now and the next 5 meetings I've got, I'm going to start making motions to make minimum lot size 20,000 square foot, because I see it coming. You see it right there with, look at the land across the street. I think the county manager will tell you, we've got, Frank Williams is talking about the development across the road? It's.
I'm not aware of that.
Okay. We'll have a meeting on that. But I'm just saying, I see Moyock changing, and I don't think it's going for the better.
Yes, sir.
Just a comment. You know, Mr. Peter hits on something. You know, we've talked, and you've hit on something again tonight. If you don't like how things are, then you make changes. Well, I will sit here and I will submit, just as Mr. Peter said, we have asked for different things about compatibility, even though compatibility don't mean, it means use and not necessarily size. We had presentations that have been brought forward to us, been other things that's been brought forward. What do? Send it back to staff, still sitting and talking about it. We've talked about sewer system and residential hookup compatibility. There are the tools and the answers to these issues, and we have not done anything to get them work or finish it to make it to where we're going to continue to have these conversations for the next until we get the tools in place to be able to make some smart decisions. I mean, all we're doing is we're admiring the problem again. And with that, I'll hush.
Well, I will say that I think the issue at hand is density, and a lot of times density and lot size gets confused. And I'm not saying anybody's confused, but if you put 10,000 square foot lots on that piece of property, or 10 1-acre lots on that piece of property, you still got 10 homes that are going to be built. So the difference is how much land you use and how much is set aside that's not developable. If the density allows 70 lots on there, then the Board of Commissioners and the community need to change the density. We just went through that exercise with a small area plan. How many meetings did y'all have, Ben? How many months?
A lot. 18, I think, actually. But
okay, and this board did not participate in that. So we didn't direct how it came to us. It came to us, and we approved it because the community said that's what they wanted, which basically was just laying over what the already existing land use plan said in many ways. So I think the issue that needs to be discussed is what density you allow per acre, not so much the size. And I don't, you know, if you want a minimum lot size, you know, that's fine. But not everybody wants an acre yard.
Excuse me.
Not everybody wants a half-acre yard. Some people, some older folks would like small lots. If nobody wants small lots, nobody will buy them. They'll sit there and just stay there forever. Nobody will buy them. So I think the issue is what is the density that we want in the Moyock area versus the size of the lots. And when I talk to people in Moyock, that is the issue, is the density. But it gets confused with the lot size. Everybody thinks that if you have a large lot, you got less density, but that's not necessarily so. It's the number of homes that are allowed on that piece of property is, to me, is what I see the issue is. And I've said it when we had the old land use plan. I said, if you don't like it, we have to change it. When we got the new update, and if you don't like it, you have to change it. But again, you can't just change the rules without changing them through the proper procedures and allowing people a chance to have input and be involved in it. And I thought we had just done that 3 months ago or 4 months ago when we adopted the small area plan. So if that is not where we are, then it's time to start having those discussions again Go back out to the public, let them participate, and tell us again what they like. They may change their mind, they may come back and tell us again. But it's public participation is, for me, what I'm going to listen to when we make these decisions. So,
Mr. Chairman,
that's my take on it. Yes, sir.
for the record, I'm not confused. I know the difference between density and lot size.
And I said you weren't.
Okay, all I'm saying is when we had a work session back in March, and I don't want to beat this thing to death, but we had a meeting and we talked about lot size, lot size, lot size. And Mr. Woody asked us, is it density or lot size? I think we took a vote. I think the record will reflect. We took a vote and it was lot size. Now, if somehow or another it might have got changed, whatever, but I have said all along, what's happening is, and I think Commissioner Griggs talked about using wetlands. You count this, you got that, and yada, yada, yada. You got 3 shells and a pea, and here we go. Guess what? I got a 20,000 square foot lot and it's stuck in it, and I can spit through the window and hit the next one. So, I mean, you can, in my opinion, you can move the numbers around and make it fit whatever you want. That's why I'm saying lot size, and it's not compatible with MOYOC. And I will bet you $1 to a donut that if you go back to the people in MOYOC, they were talking about lot size. They weren't talking about density. And it's just, and all you have to do, I'm asking my fellow commissioners to look at that farmland due north. And you know what's coming. So I just, for the record, I'm not confused. It's 20,000 square foot lots, period. And what Commissioner Odlett talks about is, you know, I voted on a wastewater plant for commercial. Jesus Christ, it's coming, and it's going to overwhelm the thing. So, anyway, I'm sorry, I'm on my damn box.
And just as
it's called a blaze of glory.
To me, we're just not comparing. I mean, my comments were not to dispute anything that you just said. I totally agree with what you said. I don't have a problem with that at all. I'm just saying, we as a body asked for certain things to get done to give us some tools and some to help us with guidance in these types of situations. And here we are making those decisions, and we don't have that guidance yet in front of us. No fault of nobody's. I'm not trying to point fingers. I'm just saying that it would be mighty helpful to me if we had a sewer policy that we agreed on. I mean, you know, you've heard it from the constituents. You've heard it from everybody as to, was the sewer system built for commercial? Was it built for residential or whatever? And we asked to have a policy put in place that we could all agree upon so we could move forward with these type of things like we're talking about here. You get more density with sewer than you do without.
That's
Mr.
correct.
Woody said it. So if we had those policies in place, we could kill 2 birds with 1 stone and answer those questions. That was my only comment.
That would take care of the lot size issue that Mr. Petrie has, because you couldn't build those kind of small lots without a wastewater system. So, anyways, we have an agenda item here, and we've gone all around in circles, and it's time to come back to the agenda item. Does anyone have any further questions of Mr. Woody? Hearing none, I'm going to open the public hearing. There was no one that signed up to speak in the public hearing. Is there anyone that wishes to speak?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and you can speak after him. You can go after him. Go ahead.
Mark Bissell with Bissell Professional Group. I've listened to some of all of what you've had to say, and you've got some valid points. But one of the things I want to point out that what we're proposing is half of the density that's allowed by the land use plan. We're also proposing 40% open space. If you look at the preliminary site plan, we have a very nice wooded site. The idea is to take some attractive homes and nestle them in the woods, preserving as much of the trees as possible, leaving wide tree buffers. If this is done properly, you will not even be able to see this development from the surrounding properties. We've got, you mentioned the lots to the northeast. We have a tree buffer there that's more than 100 feet wide. And of course, those lots are have just been platted, and actually we have the same developer, so he's not going to do something that's going to jeopardize the existing development. The land to the south, east is undeveloped. A lot of that is platted as open space already. You have the assisted living facility. You have some other property that's being proposed for multifamily. We think that it really is compatible, and certainly the land use as a residential community nestled in the woods is compatible with Moyock. This is going to be a nice development. We're calling for sidewalks on both sides of the street. Like I told the planning board, that may be the only time you hear me promoting sidewalks on both sides of the street, but it actually is compatible with this and appropriate for this development. It's going to be a nice development. We've got opaque screening. It's I don't know if you've ever been to this site. It's like a park, and the intent is to keep it like a park. It'll be a nice community. We want to set a high standard in conservation subdivision design and development that Currituck County and the developer and we and the residents can all be proud of. Just a couple of other points. Mr. Woody mentioned there may be wetlands. We actually have had a complete wetland delineation done now, and it's not wet other than the only jurisdictional areas are the ditches and the existing pond. From a drainage standpoint, we're going to be putting large lakes in there and retaining a lot of stormwater on site and just metering it out slowly into the existing drainage outfalls. And then there was one other point. What was that? It eluded me all of a sudden.
That happens. Don't worry.
That's right.
Mr. Humphreys has owned this property for a long time, and he tried to develop it as a light industrial park, and he tried for 15 years to do that, and it just wouldn't take off. He thought he had some of the property sold a couple of times, and it just wasn't the right location for that. We think it is the right location for a residential development, and we would ask for your support on this rezoning.
Thank you. Ms. Hall, you raised your hand.
My name is Denise Hall. I live at 174 Old Jury Road, Moyock. You have the opportunity now to stop it from becoming Green Run. Please take it. I disagree. We all we're doing is building. We're taxing our schools. We're putting a strain on our taxpayers, which we're already at the brink. I would ask that you do not rezone it. Once you rezone it, you've lost control. Don't rezone it, please. Thank you.
Thank you. Is anyone else? With that, I'm going to close the public hearing and ask the board for a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I want to make a motion to deny PB 1414 due to its inconsistency with the Moyock Small Area Plan because the proposed density is not appropriate for the location since larger lot subdivisions exist to the north and south, and that the request is not reasonable and is not in the public interest. And I want to add that, in my opinion, it's not compatible with Moyock. So I make a motion to deny.
Have a motion for denial. We have a second.
I'm going to second that motion in addition to my concerns with the railroad and the fuel depot that's also adjacent to that.
Okay. I'll just read into the record that the planning board unanimously approved due to its consistency with the goals, objectives, and policies of land use plan and small area plan. And I believe staff said it also met those as well. Any further discussion?
Yes, I didn't hear the word compatibility in there. And compatibility is a term that each person has their opinion. So, in my opinion, it's not compatible.
Anything else? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion for denial signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No.
No.
Okay, motion fails. So we would need a substitute motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we continue this zoning request until a dialogue's been had with the railroad, and we also have some updates on the sewer policies.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to continue. Is that appropriate, Mr. McCree?
Yes, it is, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? I'll be the lone no again. Motion carries. Item C, public hearing and action, PB 1406, Currituck County request to amend the Unified Development Ordinance, PB 1406, Currituck County. Request to amend the Unified Development Ordinance, Chapter 2, Administration, Chapter 3, Zoning Districts, to modify the major subdivision standards to include minor subdivisions and clarify the minimum lot size for minor subdivisions in the AGSFI districts. Mr. Woody.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is the last planning public hearing item tonight.
Thank God.
I suspected the board may feel that way. What you have before you tonight is part of a text amendment that the staff started running earlier this year. And this amendment actually did include some items related to compatibility, wetlands, and minimum acreages for planned developments. But what we've done is we've pulled out some language specific to minor and major subdivisions and went ahead and brought that forward for your consideration tonight. So what this does is it requires that a minor subdivision that's created on the parent tracts, you've got a large piece of land, and a minor subdivision that's created, if within 5 years of that minor subdivision, the remainder of that tract develops for a major subdivision, those initial lots that were created as a minor subdivision are included in calculations such as open space, recreation and park area dedication, stormwater, and reserve fund accounts or fees. And probably the easiest way to explain it is just taking examples. You've got a tract of land here that's subject to development. If you can look, you can see the 5-lot minor subdivision there. The minor subdivision is, in fact, a tool for landowners to create lots with ease, not having to go through a cumbersome approval process or spend a lot of money. So it is a good tool. A lot of times minor subdivision lots are done to help provide some income to a farm or to a family member or even for a child or a kid to have a lot. A lot of times minor subdivisions lots are done to provide money or kind of have seed money for the rest of the development to move forward. Nothing wrong with minor subdivision lots. It's a tool that everybody has access to. What we see happening, though, is a lot of times the minor subdivision lots are created. Then you see the remainder of the development move forward. However, those minor subdivision lots are not included in open space calculations. They're not included in stormwater, et cetera. So they're kind of left void or outside of the major subdivision. But, of course, the intent was for those lots to be the starting point of the initial subdivision. Now, in this example, you can see what you see with minors. A lot of times you see they'll put curb cuts on the road that exists, and then they'll build internal roads for the remainder of the lots. And in this case, you have 19 lots. An ideal subdivision, if you really were planning a major subdivision, what you would do is actually not put the curb cuts on the existing roads, build the internal infrastructure, and create the lots that way. This is the same number of lots as the previous slide. But all that said, what staff's recommending in this text amendment is that if those 5 lots are created and the rest of the subdivision moves forward within the next 5 years, those 5 lots count towards the total lot count for the subdivision. Not saying you can't do it, they just get included into what's moving forward. If those 5 lots are created and there's no subdivision activity for the next 5 years, then the clock resets, basically. So if you're, in fact, doing a minor subdivision just because you need land to supplement a farm or whatever it is, that's fine. But if you're doing the minor subdivision, which is fine, but that's the first step of the major subdivision, what this amendment requires is all those lots to be considered together.
Does it have any impact on, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I'll let you finish what you're.
Well, I was going to say, and another thing I want to point out real quick in this amendment, in what we did in the text, in the ordinance, it says, it refers to, and again, now the minor subdivision lots can be 40,000 square feet in size. So, with the exception of the off-road area, the lots are always 120,000 square feet. Other than that, when you go in lots such as ag, or zoning districts such as ag and the zoning district on Knott's Island, you're allowed to create these first 5 lots at 1 acre in size, basically, even though after that your lots will be bigger. We also clarify some language in the ordinance related to that. That's no substantive change, but some of the changes you see relate to just kind of clarifying that distinction. The Planning Board heard this request and did recommend approval, and the Technical Review Committee has also reviewed this and recommends approval as well. And I can answer any questions.
Okay. In the specific instance of Knott's Island, as you said.
Yeah.
Okay, 1 acre lots, then anything after that is 3 acres or more, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And once those 5 lots have been cut out off of that tract, then that completes, other than 3 acre lots. Does this do away with that now to where you can come in and start doing 1 acre lots again?
It doesn't, no. So if you did the five 1 acre lots, you've completed your minor subdivision, so you've lost the ability to continue that.
Got it.
But it just makes those 5 lots count toward the rest of the subdivision.
So
but if you don't move forward with the rest of the subdivision, you don't get to reset the 1 acre lots. You just don't have to count those 5 1 acre lots towards your calculations.
And I know the zoning is different there than it is.
Yeah, on the main one, that's correct.
So so things it remains the same in essence for that.
Yes.
Thank you.
After 5 years, you say the clock resets so that you can start over a second minor subdivision.
Now, you couldn't start a second minor subdivision. What you could do is you could develop your major subdivision, and you wouldn't have to include those minor subdivision lots in any of your calculations. Okay. They just exist free and clear.
So what is the real impact to that? I mean,
the real impact is that if you do a minor subdivision with the intent of immediately following up with a major subdivision, you have to take those lots and include them in your density calculations, your open space, all that. So
it kind of precludes gaming the system.
Yeah, I got it. Yeah.
Yes.
So they have to become part of the homeowner association, everything.
That's correct. The whole 9 yards.
All right.
Again, it doesn't prevent you from doing the minor subdivision, just incorporates that into the standards.
All right. Anything else? Hearing nothing else, I'm going to open the public hearing. I have no one signed up. Is there anyone that would like to speak that did not sign up? Hearing none, I'm going to close the public hearing and ask the board for a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'll step out here again. I make a motion to approve PB 14-06 due to its consistency with the land use plans, infrastructure policies, and that the request is reasonable and in the public interest and results in a logical development plan, a development pattern.
Have a motion for approval.
I'll second.
Have a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next agenda item under old business, Mr. McCree, is second reading of Peddler's Ordinance Amendment.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, and as requested by the Sheriff's Department, this will amend the Peddler Ordinance to allow for additional time before the sheriff is required to issue a peddler's license upon application if she is waiting on, or the Sheriff's Department is waiting on the Division of Criminal Information, SBI, to return record and fingerprint checks to the sheriff. This was on at your August 18th meeting, I believe was the date, at which time it did not pass by unanimous vote as required by statute. It is back before you as required second reading, and it may be passed tonight by a majority vote.
We have any questions for Mr. McCree? Have a motion for approval?
To approve.
Have a motion?
Second.
Second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Old business, item B, resolution to modify the 2008 debt for the mainland water system reverse osmosis plant. Mr. Scanlon.
Mr. Chairman, I actually have some very good news to present to the Board of Commissioners tonight. The Finance Department has been successful in negotiating a lower interest rate on outstanding debt that we have on the mainland water system. It'll be done or we're proposing to do it in 2 phases. The first phase being presented to you tonight. The second phase will have to occur in 2015. What we're bringing tonight is a request to have the interest rate drop from 4.09% to 2.98%, which is a $900,000 saving over the remaining life of the bond, or approximately $65,000 annual saving in interest payments. And I'd be happy to answer any specific questions you might have.
One question for me is, does this have any reflection on our excellent bond rating?
I believe our bond rate.
Our bond rating have any reflection on this?
I think both questions is probably yes. You read recently other jurisdictions have had trouble getting refinancing done or having to be submitted to prepayment penalties. I think our credit worthiness has helped our finance department to be able to negotiate successfully a refunding with a refinancing without having any prepayment penalties. So I think it impacts it, yes.
My next question was simply going to be, our financial rating is a reflection of our financial accountability in the county, correct?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Any further questions?
Good job.
Yep. I guess you need a motion for approval?
Yes, sir.
Move.
Have a motion?
For sure.
Second. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next is board appointments. Okay, Mr. Beaumont's not here, so he can't do anything about the library. And I believe, Mr. Griggs, you have Whalehead.
I do. I'm still in discussions. I would request that.
Okay, and then I think the next one was Mr. Beaumont had somebody for tourism, so he's not here. So,
move to continue.
I believe, Madam Clerk, you can just roll the page over to the next meeting. And let's see here. Next item is consent agenda.
Question.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Scanlon, what is item 4?
Item 4 is a request from the Knott's Island Volunteer Fire Department pursuant to their contract. If they're going to purchase something that exceeds $5,000, they have to come back to the board. So they're not requesting any additional funding from the county. This is within their operating budget, but they want to bring it to the board's attention and get your approval to buy, I believe it's a Hearst tool.
Got it. Thank you.
You okay with it?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Do we have a motion for approval?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
So moved.
Any further discussion? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Commissioners report, Mr. Griggs.
Nothing tonight.
Mr. Idlet.
Nothing.
Mr. Petrie.
Nada.
Ms. Gilbert.
Okay, well, just want to remind everybody that this Friday, the golf outing for the chamber, they still have some sponsorships and some spaces open. Shotgun start at 1 p.m. Please contact the chamber if you have any questions.
Where's the golf course?
4 bills.
Yeah.
Kilmarlock.
And you can contact the chamber at 252-453-9497. Saturday is the Currituck Heritage Festival. Starts at 1 p.m. The first 1,000 residents gets a free lunch. I would challenge my colleagues to join me at 4 o'clock for the hog calling contest.
Got a sore throat.
I've gotten roped into that. I'm washing them, now I'm calling them. So please join us Saturday at the Heritage Festival at the Rural Center, starting at 1 p.m. And on Saturday night, there's a cancer fundraiser at the Moyock United Methodist Church beginning at 6 p.m. It's just a night of praise and fundraiser for cancer recipients. That's all I have tonight.
I have a couple things. Ms. Lowe had asked me to also talk about that. There's a couple things that I'll add to that. Of course, it's Saturday from 1 to 6. Free food to the first 1,000 people starting at 1 p.m. There'll be vendors. If you don't make it for the free food, there'll be plenty of vendors. It's going to be live music, the high school band, chorus, an FFA, a barn dance, some throwback contests, great exhibits, and more. And festivities this year are sponsored by Currituck County, Currituck Cooperative Extension, and Whalehead Preservation Trust. You can go to the Extension website and get all the details and information. And is it on our website as well, Mr. Scanlon?
I'll check and see if it is. If it isn't, it will be.
Yeah, I think it'll be a great fun for a lot of people. Just be kind of like old times. The next thing I have, Mr. Scanlon, is we have CenturyLink as our telephone provider here in Currituck County. They also are a high-speed internet provider if you happen to live in certain areas. What I would like is for them to present to us a map where high-speed internet is available in Currituck County and what their plans are to expand that footprint throughout the county, because I've had, through the last couple of years, had a lot of people ask me how come CenturyLink doesn't provide high-speed internet in my neighborhood or whatever, and I really can't answer them. And it'd be nice if they had a representative here. When I talked to them, they said you have to sign a petition, you have to have a certain number of people that'll do it. So I think it'd be best if they just came and explained to our citizens what they need to do in order to do that. And with that, Mr. Manager, your report.
Mr. Chairman, as far as the CenturyLink,
Yes.
6 years it took me in the off-road area of Ranchland to get high-speed internet. Just had to keep calling them every month.
Well, I think having some visibility here will kind of encourage them to know that folks really are interested in it.
I do have one thing. It jogged my memory just a second. Mr. Scanlon, I guess, and Deb back there in the back, thank you all for your diligence for helping get the Knights Island governmental channels back up. I was on vacation all last week, but as I come back home yesterday, I seen they were working. So I assume they got all the equipment moved to the hit-in station, and we're maybe up and running for a change now.
They found out what the problem was and they fixed it. They haven't moved the equipment, but they still intend on moving the equipment.
Okay. So, but in the interim.
Yes, I think Thursday they got the channels working like they're supposed to.
Except for the audio issues that we've been having for 6 months.
And yes, sir.
Please remind them and stay on them.
Yes, sir.
That we need to get the audio situation fixed. Thank you.
Mr. Scanlon?
Nothing tonight, thank you.
All right, do we have a motion to adjourn?
A motion to adjourn from me.
Have a second. All in favor, aye. All opposed can stay.